Producing Tier 1 and above steadily requires a Grade 2 floating continent at minimum, and even those do not turn out much of it in a year. Grade for grade, the continents get rarer as they climb, and better than 9/10 of all floating continents in the Star Sea are ungraded or Grade 1. The White Tower floating continent under my feet is Grade 1, and it is a life-bearing continent, which makes it the most valuable kind of Grade 1 there is. None of which changes the fact that a Tier 1 dark matter energy shield generator is a magnificent piece of equipment. At level 10, it is still orange. Its characteristic now raises shield value by an additional 60%, and its second characteristic still doubles the shield's protection value. Consumption is 40 psionic energy points per second, and protection reads 380. The shield value reads 6080 out of 6080. Recharge in 20 seconds, 40 minutes of buffering after an overload, and the next upgrade wants 20 units of Tier 1 floating land origin, 5,000 psionic energy points, and 20 tons of mercury crystal. The shield value alone is 6 times what my old psionic shield carried at the same level, which is the whole argument for orange quality components in one number. By rights, the white gold and rock hull armor should be next. It is not going to be. Both of those components are defensive, and now that I am carrying an orange glory quality energy shield, the hull armor has stopped being urgent, at least for the near future. So I go to the psionic engine instead, because a consumer that size changes the arithmetic on the whole ship. The dark matter energy shield generator alone burns 40 psionic energy points every second, and my level 7 psionic engine supplies 27. For a man as attached to his own survival as I am, who intends to fly with that shield up permanently, those two numbers cannot be allowed to stay in that order. Tens of seconds later, the psionic engine is at level 14. Still colorless, consumption 8 per second, power supply 68 per second, 20 minutes of buffering after an overload, and a psionic pool holding 5,000 points. Its next upgrade wants 140 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin, 2,300 psionic energy points, and 70 Tier 0 life nuclei. That is barely enough to keep supply and consumption balanced, with every component on the firmament running at overload at the same time, and getting there cost me close to another 400 strands. Looking at what is left, that is somewhere around 2,600 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. So I abandoned the plan I had been building to put more into the white kindling hull and the fire sunflower soldier tree. Both of the components I just seeded are basic components, and neither of them occupies a special slot, and Tier 1 fire sunflower soldier puppets are adequate for now. The real reason is that there is a much larger consumer waiting for me. I load the mineral stock I bought at a price difference in the ruins market into the shuttle, since all of that is going to the black market later. Then I withdraw the firmament into my kindling ancestral aperture and walk to the far end of the market. 300 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin takes the ruins market from level 5 to level 9. The panel afterward reads the Heavens Market, Market Master Song Chi, level 9, 28 vacant shops, a stall area 210 feet on a side, and a single-story inn that takes 40 guests. One level 0 all-attribute cultivation room where efficiency doubles for psionic energy defensive array. One level 0 ultra-long-range random spacegate deployment platform. Extra configuration, none. 0 out of 4, and the trait is still danger avoidance. Reaching level 10 wants 200 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. A total ruins market transaction volume of 10,000 strands. The market personally opened for trade 3 times, of which I have done 1. The area has grown again, and the shops in the freestall zone and the inn have all improved by varying amounts. The all-attribute cultivation room, the psionic energy defensive array, and the deployment platform have not moved at all, exactly as before. The requirement at the bottom is the part I did not expect. Getting to level 10 now needs a count of how many times this market has been opened, on top of the origin and the transaction volume. The condition is not harsh, and it does put a hard floor under how fast this place can climb, because no amount of money buys 3 months of calendar. With the all-attribute cultivation room and the deployment platform standing across the street from each other, I split my attention and start reinforcing both at once. Carrying the pair of them to level 9 costs 900 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin, and improves both enormously. The all-attribute cultivation room at level 9 raises cultivation speed by 290% for Tier 0 creatures, by 580% when the cultivator is working on psionic energy specifically, and its next upgrade wants the ruins market at level 10 and 150 strands. The deployment platform at level 9 now places 19 space gates across the Shattered Star Sea instead of 10. The gates still lasting 24 hours on a 720-hour cooldown, and its next upgrade wants exactly the same thing. The resources that consumed were frightening, and the results are not arguable. 580% on a psionic guidance technique is a staggering figure on its own. It is worth remembering that the dedicated psionic cultivation platform aboard a kindling starship manages 290% at the same level. Reading that comparison, I permanently give up on ever reinforcing the platform aboard the firmament, because the all-attribute cultivation room is simply better by a margin that makes the question silly. 19 gates instead of 10 means that when I open the ruins market for the second time, there will be nearly twice as many alien races coming through, and the profits go up with them. That leaves me holding about 1,400 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin, and I think about the golden rock hull armor carefully and still do not touch it. There is a second alien star region exploration in 28 days, and I have to hold emergency resources for it. A second ruins market session in 30 days that needs starting capital of its own. 1,400 strands is already stretched thinner than I like. Spending more of it and then having a bad exploration would gut the profits on the next trading session. With stable money sitting right in front of me, there is no reason on the ground to gamble. I do not even stay to try out the enormous amplification I just paid for. I leave the heavens market instead. Counting the 20 hours of deep sleep before it, I have not come out of my bedroom in nearly 2 days. I did warn my parents in advance, and warning them only buys so much time before somebody decides to come through the door, so I need to be seen. Both of them are in the living room. Neither of my parents holds another job because kindling captains generally do not need one, so the odds of finding them at home on any given afternoon are excellent. They take one look at me standing there looking rested and finally let the whole thing go, and underneath the relief there is something in both their faces that is unmistakably pride. The limit-breaking state is not a thing a person walks into. I got there by accident, and having been there once, the odds of eventually owning it outright are good so long as my luck is not appalling. The three of us talk about nothing for a while, and then my father gives my mother a look. She gets up, walks to the living room sofa, crouches down beside it, and feels along something underneath with her hand. I am still working out what she is doing when she opens whatever mechanism is under there. A faint blue light screen comes up out of the living room floor and spreads outward fast, running into every corner of the house. By the time it stops, it has closed the whole place into a sealed space. My eyes go wide, and I am not proud of how wide. I have lived 2 lifetimes, and I was an unnervingly observant child in this one, and I had no idea my own house was carrying a device like that. My father waves a hand at me to follow, and the two of us go into the study one after the other. I am stunned a second time on the threshold. Whatever I remember of my father's study has nothing to do with the room I am looking at. The desk is gone. So are the bookshelves, the wooden chairs, and the windows. What is in front of me looks far more like the chaotic space inside a kindling ancestral aperture, except that at the center of this one there is no burning flame seed. There is a picture scroll instead, over 30 feet across in both directions. I look up at it. Against the backdrop of an enormous starry sky, the phantom of a dragon-spined tyrant whale is roaring at the void. A mecha giant 30,000 feet tall stands between the heavens and the earth, looking down on every living thing beneath it. The whole scene is printed into that scroll so cleanly it might be moving. One casual glance at the back of that towering mecha figure, and something in it takes hold of my entire attention and will not let go. My body locks where it stands without any part of me agreeing to it. The light in my eyes drains away, and when it is completely gone, I am standing under a sky of permanent darkness. Directly overhead is the projection of the mecha giant, with the dragon-spined tyrant whale phantom flickering around it. Solemn in a way I do not have a word for. I have no idea how long I stand there. What I notice is that the projection above me is getting more solid and more imposing by the moment, and that the flickering whale is resolving into something I can see clearly. I am somewhere between awe and alarm when my father's voice arrives in my ears and tells me not to panic and not to resist. Because what I am looking at is the dragon-spined tyrant whale mythical mecha visualization chart handed down through the Jung-hae Song family. He goes on, "It is the secret inheritance of our family, and I need to imprint it deep into my mind. From then on, by visualizing it steadily and letting the flame seed amplify the work, my mental strength will grow continuously and without backsliding." And he tells me not to dismiss mental strength as a soft statistic. It is hard to notice in the early years. Later on, if I ever strengthen a kindling starship far enough to activate the ship's mythical mecha form, mental strength is what decides how long that form lasts and how hard it hits. No descendant of the Jung-hae Song family has ever been permitted to slack on the visualization. Hearing that puts the whole thing in order for me. This projection is a high-grade inheritance, and I stop resisting it entirely. I concentrate everything I have instead, lift my eyes, and start deliberately visualizing every fine detail of the giant overhead. Even I do not expect what that focus does, because somewhere in the middle of it I enter the limit-breaking state a second time. Running several tracks at once, my inscription of the mecha projection gets sharper and sharper. I could not say how long it takes. When the giant above me fades out completely, I come back out of that eternal dark sky and into the room. The study is still a chaotic space and the chart is still hanging in the center of it. And looking at it now produces nothing at all. It is a very realistic picture, and it is only a picture. If my sense of it is right, the scene on that scroll has gone noticeably dimmer since I started. My estimate is that one more imprinting takes it to unusable. My father tells me that a person may visualize it exactly once in their life, that this scroll is not the original anyway, so there is still one use left in it for my sister. The effect varies enormously between people. The stronger the imprint, the more mental strength it grants, and a weak imprint grants correspondingly little. Then he tells me that the highest imprint in the recorded history of the Junghae song family took 80% of the chart's essence, and that his own comprehension is ordinary and he managed 45. After that, he simply stands there looking at his son, which is not a subtle way of asking. I close my eyes, sink my attention as deep as it goes, and when I open them again, I give him the number, which is 70%. I am satisfied with that. Going by what he just told me, 70 is a very good result. I am also perfectly aware that it has nothing to do with my comprehension or my talent. I happen to fall into the limit-breaking state partway through the imprinting, and with that amplification behind me, I took 70% in one pass. Without it, I doubt I would have landed far from my father's number. My father hears 70%, and the smile arrives on his face before he can do anything about it. We walk out of the study together, and I immediately start working on him about the Junghae song family. Ask straight out what it is, and whether our household has some glorious past nobody has mentioned to me. He is visibly getting ready to brag, which after 30 years of having a precocious son, I think he feels he has earned. Then he glances at the blue screen already dissipating around the house, catches the look my mother is aiming at him, and shuts his mouth. What comes out instead is that I ask too many questions, that I will be told when I am supposed to know, that I should go and do whatever I have to do, and that my sister is on break tomorrow and I am picking her up on time. My mouth twitches. I curl my lip at him and I let it go, because pressing my father in front of my mother has never once worked, and I take myself out of the house. There is still a load of resources sitting in the firmament that needs to become money, which means another trip out to the black market. An hour later, I come home holding 400 strands of Tier 0, floating land origin, and 40 units of the Tier 1 kind. There's also a reserve of starship strengthening material for emergencies, life nuclei and mercury crystal and adamantite. In my bedroom, I lock the door out of habit and step into the heavens market, or to be accurate, straight into the all-attribute cultivation room inside it. I have been waiting to feel 580% on the psionic guidance technique since the moment I paid for it. The plan is to spend the entire month in this room. At 5.8 times the outside rate, 1 month in here is worth roughly half a year out there. What I want out of it is the psionic guidance technique broken through to level 5 in one push. My technique has been sitting at level 4 for nearly 3 years, and it was not far off level 5 to begin with, so the question is worth asking. The next afternoon, I take my father's Pentium Type 3 kinetic flying car out to Gangwon Soaring Dragon Middle School. Soaring Dragon is one of the better primary kindling civilization middle schools in this city, and it has the reputation to go with it. The holiday has started, which means the roads around the gate are packed solid, and since I am flying, I am not obliged to join the crawl below and make it worse. I sat down in an open space not far from the gate, in the same spot I always use. My sister has known where to find this car since she was small enough to need lifting into it. While I wait, I sink my attention inward and deliberately visualize the mythical mecha projection already imprinted in the depths of me. The imprint strengthens its holder's mental power on its own once it is set, and working at it on purpose gets considerably more out of it. I asked my father a great many more questions about the dragon spine tyrant whale mythical mecha form yesterday. The reason nobody in the family attempts the visualization before 30 is that the projection acts directly on the soul. Only a mind already braced by a successfully awakened flame seed can take that pressure. Without one, the best outcome is damaged intellect. The worst is a mind that comes apart entirely and leaves behind somebody who is never going to be anybody again. Generations of the Song family tested it until they had the answer, and the answer is that the success rate peaks when the visualization comes after the flame seed awakening. Knowing that, I have gone from interested to attentive, because I have always felt I started this whole race late. With the heavens market behind me, I am confident about where I end up. Since this particular thing decides what the mythical mecha form is eventually worth, slacking on it is not on the table. I have no idea how long I have been sitting there when a familiar voice arrives and asks why it is me and where our father is. Before I can answer, the same voice announces that it remembers now that the annual awakening ceremony was 2 days ago, asks whether I failed my awakening, and that is why our father sent me here instead. I open my eyes, turn my head, and glare at the girl standing off the right side of the car, and remind her that I am her brother and she can stop cursing me. The girl is Song Jung, my younger sister, who turned 18 this year and is 12 years behind me. I look her over and keep my face flat. 2 soft voices come from behind her, both of them greeting me as their big brother, and 2 more figures step out and line up beside her. Looking at the 3 of them standing there, I lose a second somewhere. It feels like a handful of years ago that they were small girls with scraped knees, and at some point while nobody was watching, all three have shed the awkwardness and turned into young women. It puts something sentimental in my chest that I would rather not examine. Yuk Soil and Wang Mengyoung are Song Jung's classmates and her closest friends. The three of them have effectively grown up in each other's houses, so I know both of them nearly as well as I know my sister. I greet the two of them properly and tell everybody to get in the car. All three of them smile at that, and neither Yuk Seol nor Wang Mengyoung shows a trace of shyness about climbing in. That is fair, because over 18 years I have collected this group more times than I can count, and I have taken the long way around to drop them home every single time. The engine of the Pentium Type 3 catches, and the car lifts slowly. Song Jung, in the passenger seat, gets about 4 seconds into the flight before she cannot hold it in, and asks whether the awakening succeeded. The tone she asks it in is a serious one, and it tells me what I already know about my sister. She is flighty on the surface, and she cares about this family more than she will ever say out loud. Where my awakening was concerned, she has spent months looking unbothered and worrying harder than anybody in the house. I nod, and the smile comes back into her eyes, and it lasts about a second before her true character resurfaces, and those bright eyes start rolling around while she brews something. I have been ambushed by this face for 18 years, so I strike first and tell her not to ask anything else, because if she asks, the answer is the lowest tier there is. Song Jung is not a person who gives up. A holiday out of Soaring Dragon is hard won, and going straight home is out of the question. She goes quiet for a moment and then turns to me in the driver's seat with an expression composed entirely of pleading, and informs me she is hungry, that we should go for hot pot, and that the place on Minwon Road is unbelievably good. I roll my eyes at her and pull a compact case out from beside my seat. Tell her that if she is hungry, she can drink a vial of this, and I guarantee she will not be hungry again for half a day. She opens the case with real curiosity and a little expectation, sees 10 blue tub potions in packaging she recognizes far too well, goes completely silent for a second before telling me I cannot possibly fob her off like this. Yuk Sol in the back seat gets there before I have to explain. Her eyes brighten and she leans forward and tells my sister quietly that those are intermediate body tempering potions. The word intermediate gets through. Song Jung looks down again, and this time what comes into her face is delight. She has been living on primary body tempering potions for years, because I was the one approaching awakening, and essentially everything our parents could put aside went into me. The intermediate grade has not been a regular part of her life. Then her voice drops off and she starts telling me that I have only just awakened, and I do not need to be buying her things, that our mother and father will provide for her properly from now on. She is saying it while holding a case worth 1,000,000 credit points in both hands, which is my sister exactly. She is delighted, and underneath the delight she is worrying about a brother she thinks is short of resources. I wave the whole line of argument off, and tell her the welfare exploration went well and she does not need to worry about me. Then I tell her what I am actually worried about. That is that there are 2 years left before the upgrade examination for the Advanced Kindling Academy, and her guiding technique is still sitting at level 1. I turn my head as I say it, and sweep a look across the two in the back seat as well, and tell them the same thing applies to both of them. They never copy one another on anything useful, and they have somehow achieved perfect harmony on neglecting the guiding technique. Level 1 is too low. It will hurt them getting into an advanced academy, and it will hurt their odds of awakening a flame seed later, and whatever else they have been putting their attention on can wait. Then I pull 2 wooden boxes out from beside me, and hand one to each of them. The boxes have intermediate body tempering potions in them too, 2 vials each, which is a small acknowledgement from me for the number of years those two have been calling me their brother. I watched both of them grow up. I would genuinely like to see both of them awaken a flame seed one day. In the back seat, the 2 girls hold their boxes tightly. Their eyes move around in a way that says they are thinking about something neither of them is going to share in this car. A short detour drops them at their own front doors, and then Song Jong and I go home. My mother comes out of the kitchen before the door has finished closing to collect her precious daughter for the usual round of fussing and hugging. The following day, I intend to be in the ruins market early and get on with the miserable business of training. Instead, I am dragged out of the house by my sister, because apparently the 3 of them agreed to spend today shopping and eating, and I have been conscripted. I am extremely reluctant about it, and Soaring Dragon only gives them a holiday every few months, so I go. Downtown Gangwon City, Minwon Road. 2 hours of shopping and a considerable number of purchases later, the 4 of us finally arrive at the spicy hot pot restaurant on that same road. We order the signature White Tower lamb and a spread of seasonal vegetables. We are eating and talking about the difference between primary and advanced kindling academies when a serious argument breaks out in another private room not far from ours. It gets loud, and then it gets physical, and the noise turns into tables and chairs and bottles hitting each other. I gather a little psionic energy toward my ears, and everything comes through cleanly. One man is telling somebody called Brother Peng that he genuinely does not know where a man named Yohwa and his crew have gone. that they came back from mining 3 days ago and vanished. That although he is close to them, this time they have not contacted him at all. He adds that everybody in this city knows the reputation of the Black Mountain Society, and that 10 times his courage would still not be enough to lie to Brother Peng's face. The answer he gets is that this is nonsense, that the two of them grew up sharing a pair of trousers, that nobody is going to believe he does not know where the man hides. Then Brother Peng lays it out plainly. Either he says where Mayo Owe is, or both his legs get broken. Then he tells his people to take him. It runs about that long before the first man is shouting that he will talk. He does not know exactly where Aowa and the others are, he says, but he knows several places they might be hiding. 2 minutes and I have the whole shape of it. Somebody from the Black Mountain Society called Brother Peng is hunting for a group of missing miners and is currently working through their friends. The word miners puts a small stir through me, and I put it down again quickly. I know a little about the miners of the White Tower floating continent. There is an asteroid belt in the sky around this continent, and mining it is what those people do. The belt is not large across, and after several hundred years of continuous work it is close to abandoned. The chance of anything rare turning up in it now is minute, and the quantity would be small even then. On top of which, the Black Mountain Society carries real weight in Gangwon City, and is rumored to have several kindling captains inside it. That is a very good set of reasons to keep my curiosity to myself. I am still thinking about it when there is a heavy thud outside our door. The next second the door to our room is knocked open by something with weight behind it, because the fight has spilled out of that room and into this one. My eyes go cold. Psionic energy starts moving through me, and I am about to summon a fire sunflower soldier puppet and end the whole thing on the spot. Then the restaurant's own security finally reaches the hallway, and several guards with high-level guiding techniques get between the parties and shut it down. In a Star Sea era where everybody cultivates, this sort of thing is ordinary, which is why nearly every establishment maintains a full security setup. Why even the small shops group together to keep a shared team on hand for exactly this, so I do not have to do anything. And after a scene like that, none of the four of us has any appetite left for hot pot. I take the three of them up to the counter, settle the bill, and we go. There is a small exchange on the way out, because the manager understands that our meal was ruined, and insists on waiving the whole bill, and I refuse it. The restaurant could not have predicted any of this, and it did its job as a business by putting security on the fight before it got worse. The other reason I refuse is that the meal cost a few hundred credit points, and a formal kindling captain clears millions from a single exploration. The gesture would have cost the manager more than it saved me. After lunch, the four of us wander for several more hours, and I end the afternoon carrying every bag. My guiding technique is at level 4, and I can feel genuine fatigue setting into my legs. The three of them are at level 1 and appear never to have encountered the concept of being tired, because after several hours there is not a trace of it in any of their faces, and all three are visibly prepared to keep going. I can only put it down to the hidden shopping talent of women, which was true in my last life, and has evidently survived into the Star Sea era intact. By nearly 5 in the afternoon I have had enough, and I overrule all three of them, and I fly each of them home in turn. Then my sister and I go back to our own house, which finally ends a day I would describe as more grueling than the debris belt. Back home I do not let myself think about anything else, and go straight into the all-attribute cultivation room to get on with the plan. The plan is not complicated. Days go to the psionic guidance technique inside the ruins market. The few hours before bed go to meditating on the mythical mecha projection imprinted in my mind, until my head will not hold another minute of it. Then a full night of deep sleep, and the next day the same again. It is a satisfying routine, and it eats time, and half a month goes past almost without my noticing. In the all-attribute cultivation room, I am standing in a horse stance with my hands spread flat toward the ceiling and my eyes shut, and my muscles start shaking. A second later, a run of cracking noises goes off inside my own body, and an intense tingling floods every part of me at once. I do not move through any of it. Several minutes later, when all of those sensations have finished, I finally straighten up, lower my hands, and come out of the practice. The difference is obvious to me before I've taken a step. The aura coming off my body is heavier than it was, and there's a surging in me that behaves like a supply of strength with no bottom to it. Level 5 in half a month. Whatever I thought this cultivation room was worth, I was underselling it. I spend a while gesturing at nothing like an idiot and adapting to the changes, and then I calm down, because the number deserves a second look. Level 4 had been stuck on me for nearly 3 years, and that stagnation is the whole reason level 5 came off this smoothly. Reaching level 6 is going to be a different conversation entirely. Even soaking in this room every hour of every day, half a year is the optimistic estimate. My burning enthusiasm cools right back down. That will not do. I need high-grade potions to assist the cultivation and push the rate up as far as money can push it. Because the point of continuously strengthening a kindling starship was never the starship. It is to sublimate my own life level as often and as fast as possible. And what a life sublimation buys is time. The average lifespan of a Tier 0 citizen in the kindling human civilization is 140 years, and I just turned 30, which means the arithmetic says I have decades to work with. The arithmetic is not what runs me. A transmigrator carries the instincts of the life before, and the part of me that grew up on Blue Star cannot stop pushing. What it wants is my first life sublimation as early as it can be arranged. Tier 1 carries a lifespan of 200 years. That is the first number that would let me relax even slightly. I come out of my bedroom and go directly to the bathroom, because breaking through to level 5 pushed a great deal of impurity out of my body, and I am not willing to walk around in it. My father calls out from the living room before I get there and tells me to come with him to the Kindling Bureau tomorrow, because now that I have completed a first alien star region exploration, I can apply to activate the Kindling Network. Hearing that, my eyes light up and I agree fast enough that he laughs at me. The Kindling Network is the interstellar communication network this civilization built on the foundation of the flame seed itself. The ordinary network everybody in Kindling territory uses today is a floating continent regional network, anchored to the continent it serves. It works beautifully until a person leaves the continent, at which point it stops existing, which is a spectacular inconvenience for a civilization whose entire economy is interstellar navigation and exploration. Building a real interstellar network the conventional way is close to impossible. The cost is staggering to begin with. A base station put up out there gets destroyed by star sea storms, alien races, star beasts, space pirates, or a badly timed asteroid at the first moment of carelessness. The maintenance bill is worse than the construction bill. Then there is the part that actually kills the idea, which is that the star sea is too large. The distance from one floating continent to the next is routinely measured in light years, and simply linking two of them is already a project. Even the Morningstar Principality, which sits out on the edge of kindling human territory, holds more floating continents than a 5-digit number covers. The habitable ones are far fewer, and the difficulty of stringing all of them together is still not something a person can picture. The Kindling Network gets around all of it by refusing to be built out of hardware. It is a vast structure sketched layer over layer using flame seeds as its base points. It requires no construction resources and no maintenance whatsoever, because every base point in it is a living kindling citizen who regulates themselves and grows stronger over time without anybody paying for it. It is fair to say that the reason this civilization climbed to high-level status in only a few 100,000 years comes down to two things. One is the adaptability of the kindling starship and how badly it shortens a development cycle. The other is a communication network nobody can cut. After a long shower, I lock myself back in my room and go on with the guiding technique and the mythical mecha projection. Cultivation is a boat against the current, and a captain who does not advance goes backward, and perseverance is not optional in this line of work. If a man wants a long life and cannot make himself sit through the simplest and dullest part of getting one, he has no business expecting much later on. The further the psionic guidance technique goes, the longer each level takes. Eventually, it costs 10 years or several decades of steady practice per level, and anybody who cannot stand being alone with it drops out. My father gets me out of the house early the next morning, and we do not summon a kindling starship. We take the Pentium Type 3 kinetic flying car again. A kinetic vehicle is obviously far slower, and there are all sorts of restrictions on carrying passengers aboard a kindling starship, and neither of us is in any particular hurry. There is also a better reason, which is that the firmament is not fit to fly. That Tier 1 white-winged race did serious damage to her hull on the way out of the rift. She is currently repairing herself slowly inside my kindling ancestral aperture, and interrupting that is a bad idea. A dedicated kindling starship repair facility could have handled the whole thing in a few hours. I refuse to use one, because using one means repair personnel walking through my ship, and every single thing about the firmament would be laid open to strangers. Any captain with something to hide resists that instinctively, and I have more to hide than most, so she repairs herself slowly instead. Half a month in, she is a few days off finished, and interrupting now would cost me a great deal of time renourishing her later for no reason at all. The Gangwon City Kindling Bureau sits in the center of the city, not far from the Donggang residential district, and the Pentium Type 3 covers the distance at about 10 minutes. From the air, the bureau looks like a perfectly planned circular base with every function accounted for. Office buildings and starship docking areas and flying car lots and physical training grounds are all laid out where they belong. We park where the staff direct us, and my father takes me straight to the Kindling Personnel Office building. We are barely inside when a middle-aged man in a Kindling uniform comes over smiling, and I get my greeting in first, and call him Uncle Shim. Supervisor Shim Mungial is one of the inspection team leaders at the Kindling Bureau, and a Tier 2 Kindling captain who commands a frigate-class psionic energy starship, and his weight in Gangwon City is considerable. The part that matters more to me is that he and my father are long-standing friends. The two families have been in and out of each other's homes since I was small, so Uncle Shim has known me my whole life. He trades a few pleasantries with my father first, and then turns to me and tells me I am a good lad, and that a successful awakening is what counts, and the rest is unimportant. That I should come to his house in a few days so that he and my aunt can celebrate properly. I smile broadly and thank him, and then I mention, in the tone of a man making conversation, that Shim Yurin must be coming up on her own awakening soon, that it has been almost 2 years since I last saw her, and I let a sigh out at the end of it that I only partly meant to be audible. Uncle Shim and my father exchange one look and then both of them laugh out loud at me. Uncle Shim wants to know whether I am still angry at him and my aunt, and tells me that if I miss Yurin that badly I can go to Gangju City myself. That a man of 30 ought to be past being coy about it. Being teased that openly gets to me even though the mind inside this body is closer to 60 years old. I go red anyway and stand there looking like exactly what I am pretending not to be. The two of them see it, decide they have had enough fun, and go back to chatting about nothing. We reach a door on the left side of the 3rd floor while they are still talking, and I look up at the sign, which says Kindling Network Room. Uncle Shim knocks. A man in the same bureau uniform opens the door, and something flickers across his eyes when he sees who it is, and his smile gets a good deal warmer as he greets Captain Shim. Uncle Shim nods slightly and gestures me in, and I go. That room exists for one purpose, which is activating the Kindling Network, and the man closes the door behind me without losing any of the smile. Anybody brought in personally by Supervisor Shim comes with a set of implications attached. A man who could not read implications that plainly would not have kept a post like Kindling Network Assistant Activation Officer for several years. The work is simple and entirely safe, and it pays extraordinarily well, which makes the handful of positions at every city branch fiercely contested. A moment of carelessness and somebody else is sitting in the chair. He confirms my name and points me at a seat, and the seat turns out to be inside a special metal pod not unlike a psionic energy modification pod. While I am still looking around it, he explains gently that this is the Kindling Network Assistant Activation Pod, that I should relax as much as I can and not resist. Then he adds in the same pleasant voice that Captain Shim brought me here personally. The network I am about to activate will carry a permission level 1 rank above what an ordinary Kindling captain receives. He tells me to work out the specifics for myself afterward, that he is telling me this only in here, that I should not repeat it once I walk out, that if I do, he will deny it. I nod, and I am genuinely surprised. I had always assumed Kindling Network permissions came out identical for everybody who awakened a flame seed, and it had not occurred to me there was room in the process for a favor. Whatever I think of it, I am now the beneficiary of that room. I am not about to behave like one of the invincible heroes out of the web novels of my last life. Those are the ones who decide they will personally rewrite the rules and win justice for the world. A man who talks that way has never once been made to live in a society. Where there are people, there is a society, and where there is white, there is going to be black. Failing to understand something that simple would finish me eventually. What I actually mutter, standing there, is that this is why my father brought me here himself. I thank Uncle Shim silently one more time, and close my eyes. Familiar psionic energy starts circulating through the pod and gathers, in the end, entirely at the point between my brows. What I feel is a stream of cold energy pouring in through that point and down into my kindling ancestral aperture. It collects slowly around the flame seed in there, building some connection whose shape I cannot make out. I have no idea how long that lasts. When my mind clears, I am lying on a single bed along the inner wall of the activation room. The pod is closed again. Somebody else is already inside it going through the same thing. The activation succeeded. Logging in officially takes another 24 hours, which puts it at tomorrow. Once I am steady, I thank the activation officer quietly and leave the room. My father and Uncle Shim are not in the corridor. I work from memory up to the 4th floor where Uncle Shim's office is. Find both of them sitting in there talking, with a young man beside Uncle Shim whose face is frankly better looking than mine. Shim Chong is the son of Uncle Shim's older brother and Shim Yuron's cousin, and he and I ran around together constantly as children. He awakened a colorless flame seed 2 years ago and is currently an ordinary personnel member here at the Kindling Bureau. My private estimate is that ordinary will not last long, because promotion moves faster when the family is already in the building. He says my name. I call him Big Chong, which is a name neither of us has used in years, and both of us smile at the same time without needing to explain it to anybody in the room. The two families being what they are, Shim Chong and I ran together from the time either of us could walk. With the mind I was carrying, I ended up leading whatever the two of us were doing, without ever having to argue for it. Shim Chong was never remotely reconciled to that, on the grounds that he is 2 years older, and he spent most of our childhood announcing at volume that he was the one in charge. He announced it often enough that it stuck to him. And that is where Big Chong came from. Knowing perfectly well that a casual conversation between my father and Uncle Shim is a thing that runs for hours. With noon coming up, neither of us has any interest in sitting there being decorative. We tell the two of them and go out of the office together. The moment we clear the door, The polite young man who was sitting quietly beside his uncle disappears and is replaced by somebody else entirely. Shim Chung throws an arm across my shoulders, steers us both toward the first floor, informs me that we have not seen each other in far too long, and today is going to be a proper get-together. I am running a slightly different calculation, and I point out that these are still his working hours and that we can wait until the lunch break. Uncle Shim's backing is real, and this is still a principality law enforcement unit, and I would rather be careful in a building like that. Shim Chung stops for a second and then does not argue. He is at a delicate stage for a promotion, and nobody would come after him over something this small, and being careful has never cost anybody anything. We wait out the last half hour, and then we take his Pentium Type 2 flying car out of the kindling bureau and straight to a well-known restaurant nearby. I tell him he is clearly doing well for himself, since this car costs $1 million at the very least, and ask when he bought it. The Pentium brand of kinetic flying car belongs to the Pentium Consortium, under the Morningstar Principality. Although the Type 2 is an old model from over 100 years ago, one of them still runs past 1 million credit points. It does not compare to the Fierce Tiger Type 1 mining vehicle with an onboard system that I bought recently, and it is still not a purchase your average Tier 0 kindling captain considers. It is not that they cannot afford it. It is that most of them will not spend that kind of money on a kinetic flying car that never leaves the floating continent it was sold on. The price works out to about 100 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin, which is the entire profit from one expedition into an alien star region. Which means that Shim Chung owning one says he has money spare after strengthening his own kindling starship, and that the last 2 years have gone very well for him. He smiles at me with his whole face and tells me it is nothing. A few months ago, on an alien star region exploration, he happened onto the ruins of an alien civilization and came out with a batch of good things. He kept one blue item and one white item for his own use. Sold every other white exotic item he had no use for. Cleared over 10,000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. I raise an eyebrow at him, and a piece of classic profanity out of my last life gets out of my mouth before I can catch it. Alien civilization ruins. That kind of opportunity is not common, and calling it rare is generous to the word. The shattered star sea has no edge anybody has found, and the civilizations it has raised are as numerous as sand. Across tens of millions of years, an uncountable number of them have died for one reason or another. A few of those left traces behind, and under the erosion of time, those traces slowly became civilization ruins. There are a great many of them in absolute terms. Set against the size of the star sea, an ordinary person walking into one is a thing that essentially does not happen. While I am still sitting with that, Shim Chung smiles at me mysteriously and says nothing further, which is exactly what he wanted me to do. The Four Seasons restaurant, a private room on the top floor, and once the dishes are on the table, he finally starts talking under a glare I have been maintaining for 10 minutes. He drops his voice to something only the two of us can hear and lays the whole thing out. The civilization is called the Bulo civilization. The ruins sit on a completely barren, long-abandoned floating continent. Last time he only opened the first layer, and by his final survey those ruins had at least 2. My eyes move while I work through it. At least 2 layers, and the first layer alone produced a blue-quality exotic item and several white ones. The odds that there is a purple item somewhere in that place are high. He asks whether I am interested in trying it together. The teleportation beacon he left behind has about 3 months left in it, so there is no need to rush. His suggestion is that both of us spend the time developing properly and go in a little over 2 months from now. A little over 2 months. I had been hesitating up to that exact word, and hearing the time frame I decide on the spot and tell him we go in 2.5 months. More than half a month has gone by since my first alien star region exploration, which leaves 13 days until the second deployment. On that schedule, 2.5 months gives me room for 2 more alien star region deployments and 2 more ruins market sessions. That is plenty of time to accumulate a genuinely large amount of resources. And with enough resources behind me, strengthening the firmament all the way to Tier 1 in one push is not difficult. Add the orange dark matter energy shield generator to a Tier 1 ship, and a set of ruins belonging to the Bulo civilization stops being frightening. Shim Chung hears me agree, and his smile widens considerably. By his account, there is nothing seriously dangerous inside those ruins, and the repulsive field in there is genuinely stubborn. Even after another careful round of strengthening on his own starship over the past months, he has not liked his odds alone. We work out the rough shape of the plan over the meal, and from the first word to the last, neither of us mentions my father or Uncle Shim. I would have liked to bring my dad. Having him along would have raised our safety enormously. Since Shim Chung did not raise it, I am obviously not going to be the one who does. The idea of asking Uncle Shim for help had certainly occurred to him. There is no chance it had not. Which means the decision not to tell his own uncle was made deliberately afterthought. I can guess most of his reasoning and I do not hold it against him. If the two of us report this properly, the question that arrives immediately afterward is how the spoils get divided, and specifically who takes the purple exotic item if there turns out to be one. A purple grade Starseed exotic item makes kindling captains above tier 3 envious, and Uncle Shim is tier 2. He is not a man who would take something off his own juniors. What nobody can promise is what happens if the item down there is a purple one that suits him exactly, and all of that assumes there is a purple item at all. If Shim-Chong's survey is wrong and the second layer does not exist, then a tier 2 supervisor has been dragged across the Starsea for nothing, and that is its own kind of debt. With that many unknowns stacked up, not telling Uncle Shim is a completely normal decision. I start to say his name, meaning to move us on to the details of the ruins themselves, and Shim-Chong lifts an index finger to his lips and signals me to stop. At the same time, wisps of psionic energy start gathering toward his ears, while he strains after something. Shim-Chong has had his flame seed for 2 years. Between the dedicated psionic cultivation platform on his own starship and the resources his father and his uncle have poured into him, his guiding technique is already at level 7. That makes his hearing right now extremely sharp. I sit there and listen as hard as I can, and I do not hear one single sound. 2 minutes later, Shim-Chong lets the psionic energy around his ears disperse, and the look on his face has gone grave enough that I ask before he can decide whether to tell me. The people in the next room are almost certainly Black Mountain Society, he says. Somebody in there took a call and the voice on the other end was too low for him to make out much, and he did catch 2 words worth catching: kidnapping. Titanium crystal. My pupils contract. Kidnapping is not the part that matters, because in a society where everybody cultivates, people go missing constantly. Titanium crystal is another matter entirely. Every textbook I ever read says the same thing about it. Titanium crystal is an extremely high-end reinforcement resource for a kindling starship, and mercury crystal and mithril and the rest of that family are not in the same conversation. Only advanced shipborne components of purple quality and above require it, and only for reinforcement past level 20. There are also persistent rumors that the upper levels of the kindling human civilization classified titanium crystal as a strategic resource a long time ago, that every major faction in the territory is fighting over it with everything they have. Both of us understand the same thing at the same moment, which is that this has already gone past anything the two of us can be involved in. And I immediately think of the incident half a month ago at the Hot Pot restaurant on Minwon Road. That was Black Mountain Society as well, and they were hunting for 2 missing miners out of Cheonwu mining. Putting those 2 things next to each other, it is very hard for me not to think further than I should. True or false, the information has to go up to people who can do something with it. We settle the bill downstairs, and it is only after we are completely clear of that street that we push the kinetic flying car to its limit and go straight for the Kindling Bureau. In Uncle Shim's office, the word titanium crystal produces the same reaction out of Uncle Shim and my father that it produced out of Shim-Chong and me an hour earlier. Once the two of us have laid the whole thing out in detail, there is nothing further for either of us to contribute, and we are both efficiently removed from the room. From here, Uncle Shim and my father will spend everything they have on establishing whether the information is real. What Shim-Chung and I are to do is go about our lives, stay out of the matter permanently, and never repeat one word of what we saw or heard today to anybody. I was mentally prepared for that, and it still sits badly. Being told to step aside because you are not strong enough to help is a specific kind of unpleasant, and neither of us enjoys the ride down. Shim-Chung drives me all the way back to the Donggang residential district in a patrol flying car, and leaves only after a final round of instructions I do not need. Back in my bedroom, I go straight into the Heavens Market and get on with the guiding technique. The next day, I interrupt myself again, because the kindling network I activated yesterday can now be connected. Every single user on that network is a Flameseed captain, which is enough to make anybody impatient. I sink my mind into the kindling ancestral aperture and gather it onto the incandescent Flameseed. A small light screen comes up across my retina asking whether I want to connect to the kindling network and the White Tower regional network under it. I confirm, and the screen changes and an image starts playing slowly. Somewhere in a vast galaxy, more than 10 battered warships are running at full speed. Behind them, thousands of vicious triangular starships are chasing them without any pretense of restraint, and one warship after another comes apart under the artillery fire from behind. It is only by blundering into an unstable interstellar wormhole and going through it that the survivors escape being wiped out entirely, and by then there are 6 warships left. The image ends there, with no beginning and no ending attached to it, and there is not one citizen raised on orthodox kindling education who can watch it without something turning over in their chest. Those last 6 warships are the founders of the kindling human civilization, and the last surviving spark of a low-technology human civilization that came within a hair of being erased. After passing through that wormhole, the human ancestors aboard those 6 ships found the ruins of an ancient civilization, and out of those ruins they took the first wisp of the original kindling source seed. That is where the civilization began, and it grew from 6 damaged holes into everything around me now. I sit stunned for a long moment after the image ends, and then 2 lines come up on the screen. The journey through the Starsea is long and the road is obstructed. The fire of civilization is never extinguished, not in all eternity. After that, I am officially logged into a regional network, under the Kindling Network. The White Tower Regional Network is one of a great many regional networks. It covers exactly what its name says. That is, every citizen who has awakened a flame seed anywhere on the White Tower floating continent, along with the asteroid belts and debris belts and even the interstellar fortresses around it. It is the largest information exchange in this whole region of sky. It also carries a task posting and acceptance system, a free trading system, a friend system, and a spread of other functions I have not touched yet. The reason I am on the White Tower Regional Network and not the main network of the entire civilization is that my flame seed rank is too low. That is a different thing from its quality. I recently took the quality of my flame seed to white, and quality only sets the ceiling on how far the seed can eventually be reinforced. Rank describes how strong the kindling starship bound to that seed is right now. The firmament has been bound for a very short time, and has only 1 special slot in use, which has been entirely sufficient. I have never reinforced the kindling starship body itself, and the rank is still sitting at level 0. I do not spend any time being embarrassed about that, because I am busy going through the functions on my account. The activation officer said yesterday that my account carries certain privileges, and finding out what they are is the only reason I logged in this early. Half an hour of poking at it, and I have the shape of all of them. There are 3. The first is that ordinary accounts speak on the Kindling Network under their real names, and mine can be set to anonymous. The second is that transactions on my account are exempt from the transaction tax, where everybody else pays 5%. The third is that ordinary accounts have to spend extra floating land origin to pin a posted task, or to take priority in accepting one, and my account does both by default. With that worked out, my curiosity is still running, so I start scrolling the regional chat. Somebody out of Gangwon City posting under the handle "Ganghai is clearing the debris belt in the northern sky of the continent and looking for brothers to form a team." Somebody out of Janghae City posting as Jochen is offering 100 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin for the coordinates of the Blood Whale Star Pirate Group's lair. Somebody else from Gangwon City posting as Chonma tells him he is dreaming, and asks whether he genuinely believes that a person capable of locating the Blood Whale lair is short of 100 strands. Further down, somebody out of White Tower City posting as Jangong reports that a psionic airship belonging to Viscount Yelin's manor has gone missing. There is a substantial reward for anybody who can produce a relevant clue. After that, I open the trading mall in the regional network with a great deal of anticipation. It earns the anticipation. A regional exchange covering the entire White Tower floating continent has the population behind it to keep the shelves absurdly full. And what is listed in there is dazzling. Minerals, gene optimization potions, military exoskeleton suits, Tier 1 and Tier 2 floating land origin, and Star Sea exotic items that are not remotely in short supply. One passed through it and my eyes hurt. There's far too much listed, and a good deal of it makes me envious, and I have no funds at all right now, so all I can do is look. The exotic items on offer are mostly white quality. There are a handful of blue ones, and every one of those is the useless sort. The green reed tree is a fair example, a blue exotic item that evolves into a green reed internal circulation system. Its note explains that it promotes air circulation and will make my future interstellar life fresh every single day. Every kindling starship comes with an internal circulation function as standard. The circulation this thing produces may well be slightly better. It adds no combat power and no defensive attribute of any kind, and I am being asked to spend serious resources so that the air aboard my ship smells nicer. Half an hour later, the novelty has worn off and the curiosity goes with it. On the way out of it, I spend some time on the anonymous function, wondering whether I could use it to cover the frequency of my future shipments. Then I think it through and drop the idea. Those account privileges came from an assistant activator at a city branch office, and if an ordinary activator at a city branch can hand them out as a favor, the confidentiality around them cannot possibly be worth trusting. For safety, I let it go. I disconnect from the Kindling Network and go back into the Heavens Market, and the days resume their shape. The psionic guidance technique during the day, the mythical mecha projection at night, over and over. Across the next 10 days and more, my father is almost never home, out from morning until far past dark, which earns him a great deal of complaining from my mother. I know exactly what he is doing, and I do not ask. Where titanium crystal is concerned, I awakened 5 minutes ago in the reckoning of anybody involved, and even if I wanted in, my father would never permit it. Then the day arrives, and my mother comes with me out to the suburbs. The firmament has finished her month of buffering, and this is my second alien star region exploration. Delaying it is technically allowed. So is never exploring again. Neither of those is a sentence that has anything to do with me. I have an orange component called a dark matter energy shield generator seated in my hull, and I have been impatient to find out what a legendary component actually does. With that shield on board, so long as I am not unlucky enough to meet a black hole or a starsea storm or a void realm rift, my safety is genuinely covered. Take the white-winged race I ran into last time. The firmament could sit motionless and let the whole flock hit her for 10 minutes now, and I am not certain they could break the shield value. The difference is not only that the dark matter energy shield carries more shield value than the old psionic shield did, the defensive attribute itself is far higher, which means a tier 1 white-winged race attack landing on the shield does a fraction of the damage the same attack did to the old one. Put both changes together and the gap is considerably wider than the numbers suggest at a glance. The Gangwon City suburbs, and the same Alien Star region deployment platform as before. The people queuing today are not students out of the academies. Most of them are ordinary civilian flameseed captains from all over the city, and there are a great many of them. Gangwon City holds over 20 million people. Even if only a few dozen ordinary citizens awaken a flame seed in any given year, the number of kindling starships the city has accumulated across a century or more is genuinely alarming. Better than 9/10 of those ships will remain at the psionic shuttle stage for the whole of their captains' lives. A psionic shuttle can only reach an alien star region through an ultra-long-range deployment platform. Not until the kindling starship hull is reinforced past level 10 and advanced to tier 1, which is the psionic airship class, can a captain make that journey without one. Which is why the field today is packed shoulder to shoulder, and there are far more ships waiting than there were on the day the academies deployed. Sun Ho turns up not long after I do, and I raise my eyebrows at him. He has clearly not been idle this month. His guiding technique has gone from level 3 to level 4, and stacked onto a physique that was already unreasonable. The pressure coming off him now is something people notice from across a field. He tells me I have broken through as well, sounds surprised about it, pauses. Then, while I am waiting to hear what he has been holding in, delivers a line of pure theater about why heaven, having already made him, saw fit to also make me. My eye twitches and I have nothing to say to him. He does this constantly, and it has never once matched the body he is carrying it in. The unbearable part is that he learned that line out of The Three Kingdoms of the Great Han Floating Continent, which is a book I published myself in my last life. I get to stand in a field and be quoted at by my own writing. I push the bear paw off my shoulder and put distance between us, because the secondhand embarrassment is genuinely painful. Sun Ho does not notice anything at all and is back within 30 seconds with that arm clamped around my neck again. My face is going dark by the time the 100 people ahead of us finish deploying, and the Kindling Bureau staff on the platform call our batch. 100 figures step up onto the platform, take their positions, and summon their psionic shuttles at the same time. Once all 100 hulls are ready, the Bureau staff outside activate the ultra-long-range Starsea deployment platform. The pillar of light climbs into the sky again, and 100 psionic shuttles are gone. The weightlessness is familiar, and I come out of it faster than I did a month ago, because breaking through to level 5 improved my physical condition a little, and my body's resistance to that sort of thing improved with it. The instant I can move, I make the same choice I made last time, and bring the energy shield up first. The pitch-black dark matter energy shield closes over the hull, and only then do I let go of everything at once. An orange-quality energy shield produces a sense of security that is frankly ridiculous. Engines up, and the firmament starts running through a desolate stretch of Starsea. The drop point is no better than last time, because there is nothing inside the patrol radar's range that qualifies as a celestial body. Several hours of flying in what amounts to a large aimless circle, with nothing to show for any of it, and my mood goes through the deck. For this trip, I bought a second Fierce Tiger Type 1 mining vehicle identical to the first, along with 2 more vehicle-mounted exploration instruments. The whole package cost me 400 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. All of that was to multiply my mining rate. Setting aside the emergency reserve, what I have left is 300 strands. If this exploration does not produce, the profits on the next Ruins market session get cut down with it, and the whole schedule I built slides backward. I am in the middle of feeling anxious about it when the patrol radar starts screaming. Red points crowd into the upper left of the radar map, dense enough to be a smear, and what they represent is 2 enormous fleets in the middle of tearing each other apart. Without meaning to, I have wandered into a battlefield between 2 alien civilizations. I take the firmament's speed down to nothing, do everything I know how to do about concealing my presence, and sit at the edge of it watching a war. Both sides have over 10,000 warships out there. Reading the energy coming off their cannon fire, most of those hulls are Tier 0 with 100 or so Tier 1 mixed through them. By the standards of interstellar civilization warfare, that is about as low intensity as a war gets. By the standards of one psionic shuttle, that field is death in every direction, and I have no intention of setting one foot into it. The dark matter energy shield is excellent, and it is not the answer to 10,000 warships in a moment of carelessness that turns into focused fire. On top of which, The firmament's own firepower is genuinely poor at the moment. What I am flying is a thick health bar with a light cannon bolted to the nose, and my odds of coming away from that chaos with anything worth having are somewhere around 0. So I spend 10 minutes and more drifting the perimeter, waiting, until I find what I came for, which is an alien warship that has effectively fallen out of the battle. It is already badly damaged, and I kill it without difficulty, because I decided not to join this war before I ever got near it, and I kept circling anyway, which means I was not there for the spectacle. What I wanted was the star map aboard one of those hulls. I know nothing about the star domain. The civilizations that live in it know a great deal, and running around like a lost animal for the next 15 hours is obviously worse than spending 12 minutes taking a chart off somebody. Star map in hand, I run and I do not look back at any of it. A few minutes later, with the battlefield well behind me, the firmament turns her hull and drives for the nearest small debris belt marked on the chart. The region that map covers is genuinely large. It has small debris belts on it. It also has 3 floating continents, one of which is a grade 2 resource floating continent, whose listed resources are extraordinary, and which carries more than 1 or 2 medium to large metal ore veins. And it is 12 light years away, which for a ship without a jump device installed might as well be a story somebody told me. The debris belt is the only thing on that chart I can reach in the time I have, so the debris belt is where I am going, and I do not have to enjoy it. Another hour or so and the firmament arrives. Against the belt I worked last month, this one is far smaller across. I do not care in the slightest, because a conservative estimate puts the number of bodies drifting in it past several 100,000. With under 20 hours left on the clock, the fraction of this belt I can physically survey is a few hundredths of a percent, and that is before any mining time comes out of it. Knowing there is nothing to waste, I step into the ruins market once, bring out one fierce tiger, and take the firmament straight down into the belt. The mining vehicle system starts talking and does not really stop. 20 pounds of refined gold. Skip. Gas ore, a few hundred pounds only. Skip. Starry cold iron, 50 tons. Half an hour of work. Mining time always goes faster than it has any right to, and another 5 hours are gone before I look up. There are gains across that stretch, and none of them are large, and the second mining vehicle never gets off the ship. When a deposit is small enough to finish in half an hour, the round trip of deploying a second vehicle to work it costs more than the ore is worth. So the firmament goes on drifting without a plan, because the belt is large enough that having a plan would be a form of self-flattery. Then the surprise arrives all at once a few minutes later. The system reports a refined gold ore signature on a fragment ahead with a preliminary estimate above 1,000 tons. I set the firmament down carefully on that fragment, put the fierce tiger on the ground, and leave 3 Tier 1 Fire Sunflower Soldier puppets standing over it. Then I bring the second mining vehicle out of the ruins market and take the ship back out to keep exploring. Since 1,000 tons of refined gold will occupy that first vehicle for several hours, and there is no reason for me to sit and watch it, which is roughly when I fly into the worst piece of navigation this belt has to offer. After one violent tremor, the firmament scrapes through a gap between several fragments jammed almost flush against each other. The shuttle I only finished repairing a few days ago picks up a fresh set of scratches. Nothing serious. I still swear at the console about it, because the density of debris in this pocket is genuinely obscene and no sane captain would drill into it. I am in here because the exploration instrument picked up special radiation fluctuations inside this cluster, and because it cannot tell me what is producing them. All it reports is a layer of unusual energy. That was more than enough to make me curious. My entire safety procedure consisted of putting 2 general-purpose drones out to confirm nothing in here was going to eat me before I came through the gap. I sweep the area and my brow comes down, because at a glance there is nothing unusual behind all that debris at all. The system in the back keeps repeating the same line, which is unknown energy fluctuation. Please explore further. Ahead of me there are a dozen or so fragments, and the smallest of them runs over 30 feet on a side. Checking each one by hand is a job that does not finish inside several hours, and I do not have several hours. So I bring the firmament in closer and put the exploration instrument to work narrowing down which of those rocks the fluctuation is actually coming out of. A dozen minutes and most of them are ruled out. Then I lower the mining vehicle and set it to carpet excavation across the 5 that are left, one at a time. An hour goes by. The first fragment is clean, and so is the second, and so is the third, and the fierce tiger starts cutting into the 4th. The mining vehicle drills fast. The alloy bit hits the rock layer and fist-sized gravel comes off it in every direction, with a hard, crisp sound behind every impact. Behind the vehicle, 5 Fire Sunflower Soldier puppets and basic civilian exoskeletons stand in a loose ring. Tungsten alloy combat shields are in their left hands and tungsten alloy spears in their right, and they watch every direction at once. I stay aboard the firmament with the dark matter energy shield up. The survey is nearly finished and I am not relaxing, because if the detector is not wrong, then whatever is producing that energy is inside one of the last 2 fragments. Something black flickers at the edge of my vision. Before I can even open my mouth to warn anybody, it has already crossed the gap and put itself behind one of the puppets at a speed I cannot follow. That puppet is fully armed and does not get as far as turning around. It is whipped a good 10 feet across the fragment with deep dents pressed into its exoskeleton armor. And that is only the opening. More black shapes come out of the rock below and go at everything standing on that fragment at once. I watch clearly as the exoskeleton on a second puppet is ruined outright by what looks like a casual flick. Those black shapes are long jet black vines covered from end to end in sharp barbs, which is not a thing I ever wanted to find inside a rock. The one mercy in it is that puppets are puppets and do not feel pain the way carbon-based life does. I take a breath and I am extremely glad I never turned the dark matter energy shield off. 2 of those strikes came across the firmament in the first seconds, and unshielded they would have put holes in my hull. Outside, the puppets sort themselves out and form up back to back, driving their tungsten alloy spears into the incoming vines. The run of sharp metallic ringing that comes back tells me something I do not enjoy. Whatever those vines are made of, they are harder than weapons forged out of tungsten alloy. The 2 puppets still aboard jump down to reinforce the ones being swarmed, and I lift the firmament off the surface and hold her 100 feet up to give support from above. The firepower on this shuttle is not going to decide anything, and it can at least be a nuisance. So the secondary cannons pour down while I work on reading the fight. Going by the hardness and the force behind those strikes, the vines are tier 1 and not entry-level tier 1 the way my puppets are. Very likely they are at the peak of it. 10 minutes in and I have a guess. There is a single entity behind all of those vines. Their coordination is far too clean, because while steadily grinding down 7 fully armed fire sunflower soldier puppets, they are still peeling off individual vines to go after the mining vehicle. Joint attacks that seamless do not happen without one parent body issuing them, and the vines themselves remind me of a particular category of creature. A star sea plant, heavily developed root systems, hardness that competes with metal, and the ability to interfere with the life energy field of open space, which matches everything I have ever read about them. Once I have that, the response is obvious. Kill the vitality in the main body and every troublesome root out here stops being a problem on its own. So I looked down at the fierce tiger. This plant did not wake up until the mining vehicle started cutting, and it counterattacked from inside the fragment core, which means the main body is directly beneath wherever that vehicle was last digging. My eyes go to the pit on the fragment below, a little over 3 feet deep, exactly where the drill stopped. With a guess in hand, I am not a man who waits around. The secondary cannons keep covering the puppets while the firmament turns her hull and lines the psionic main cannon at the bow up on that half-dug pit. Psionic light gathers at the muzzle and the charge begins. Something down there senses it, or else the energy of a charging main cannon simply agitates it, because half the vines working on my 7 puppets break off and come straight up at the firmament. Those things are absurdly long. I am hanging at nearly 300 feet, and it turns out I never left their reach. And inside 2 seconds, nearly 10 barbed vines have swept all the way up to my altitude. They lash the hull one after another and the shuttle rocks under it, and I do not react to any of it, because the charge is not finished. If this were a Tier 2 star sea plant, I would already be running. At the peak of Tier 1, it is not threatening the dark matter energy shield, at least not inside any span of time that matters here. There was always a reason I insisted on flying with the shield up permanently. An orange quality energy shield reinforced to Tier 1 that could be opened this easily by a same tier creature out of some other civilization would not deserve the word glory attached to its grade. Another 2 seconds and the ball of psionic energy at the muzzle reaches its limit, and the main cannon is charged. I press the trigger. A pitch-black sphere of energy a foot or so across drops out of the bow fast enough that it seems to arrive before it leaves, and it lands dead center in the pit below. The explosion throws gravel across the whole fragment, and when the light dies, the pit that was 3 feet deep is now closer to 12. I never expected one shot to finish it. My psionic main cannon is reinforced to level 5, and it is a standard colorless Tier 1 main cannon, so the power behind it is exactly what it looks like. I pull back on the stick and take the firmament climbing hard. Out from under the vines, the dark matter energy shield is more than strong enough, and there is still no reason to eat hits I can simply not be there for. After a shot, the main cannon needs a short buffer. The vines that split off cannot do anything devastating to the puppets on their own, so I let the secondary cannon stop and spend the time flying instead. 8 seconds later, the muzzle starts gathering energy again. Watching that, the vines chasing me appear to lose their temper entirely. The frequency of the whipping climbs to something alarming, and then I catch a change in the barbs themselves. A faint golden light starts moving between them, and barbs that were already unpleasant become something worse, and in the flow of that gold, the space around them seems to distort very slightly. My eyes narrow, and everything in me says this is wrong, and I do not get time to act on it. The next second, the vines come across the hull with that golden light running through them. The ripples that go across the dark matter energy shield are nothing like the ones before. The shield value drops by over 400 points in one exchange, which is close to a 15th of the total. Armor piercing is the only word I have for it. The dark matter energy shield generator carries a defensive attribute of its own, and an incoming attack is supposed to be reduced by that attribute before anything reaches the shield itself. That is exactly how every strike up to this point has behaved. Since the golden light appeared, those attacks have multiplied several times over, and I cannot think of another mechanism that does that. I have over 4,000 points of shield left. I set my teeth and force myself to sit still, because even with armor piercing in the equation, the firmament can absorb this for a while. I want to know which happens first. That thing showing me its body or my shield going down. The psionic main cannon fires its second shot after a short charge. It still fails to open the rock layer, and the way the vines escalate afterward tells me more than the hole does, because nothing gets that frantic about a rock. After that, it is the same sequence over and over. 2 minutes later, the fourth shot punches all the way through, and through a hole about 10 feet across, I finally get a look at the thing living inside the core of that fragment. The main body is a single vine nearly 3 feet thick, and close to 150 feet long. It carries two distinct colors along its length, faint gold across the lower half and the familiar pitch black across the upper. A fast search through the Starsea Civilization and Creature Encyclopedia gives me a name, and corrects me at the same time. It is not a Starsea plant. It is a special floating continent plant called a gold-eating vine. The entry says a gold-eating vine mostly takes root inside large metal ore veins, and grows by absorbing the metal energy out of them, and that a mature one possesses terrifying destructive and offensive power. Reading that, I feel genuinely lucky because a gold-eating vine is not a true Starsea plant like a star-devouring vine. Had that been what was under my keel, it would not have stopped at the peak of Tier 1. What happened to the firmament afterward does not require imagination. Special as it is, a floating continent plant cannot escape being a floating continent plant, and the defining trait of that whole category is that they cannot grow without limit out in open space. So it is not coincidence that this thing tops out at the peak of Tier 1. In the environment of the starry sky, the peak of Tier 1 is as far as it can evolve. Any further and the fragment could not hold it, and the moment it left the core it lives in, the raw environment outside would kill it. Which is also the entire reason it reacted like that when a fierce tiger started cutting open the fragment and dismantling the only place it can survive. Once I understand the situation, the rest of the plan writes itself. The firmament stays high and puts a main cannon round down the hole whenever the buffer allows. The 7 fire sunflower soldier puppets go into the fragment core one after another and grind the gold-eating vine down by trading 1,000 points of damage for 800 of their own. About an hour later, with 3 of the 7 puppets left standing, the life energy fluctuations from the vine below stop entirely. Between the enormous hole blown in the fragment, the raw matter of open space pouring into the core and eroding it continuously. 7 puppets fighting like nothing they lose matters. A plant that should have been extraordinarily tenacious dies out here in a fairly undignified way. I still do not go down there myself. I send the last 3 puppets to clear the battlefield. A few minutes later, I am holding a green crystal core about the size of my fist, and the database finally tells me what came out of that vine. It is called a life crystal, and its rank reads as the peak of Tier 1. Its effect is to accelerate the growth of herbs and tree seeds and other special plant life by shortening their growth cycles. The note says crystals like it are commonly found in plant-type lifeforms of the same rank. The value is respectable. Several dozen strands of Tier 1 floating land origin, which converts to several hundred strands of the Tier 0 kind. I am satisfied with that. The detour cost me more time than I wanted, and it produced something at the end of it. While it does not compare to 1,000 tons of refined gold, it is worth more than several full star domain explorations by an ordinary Tier 0 kindling starship. Then I recover the fierce tiger. That was a priority target for those vines throughout the fight and is now 30% damaged, so a serious drop in its working efficiency is coming whether I like it or not. I am nowhere near rich enough to abandon it. It goes to a repair shop when I get home, and it will work fine afterward, because I paid millions of credit points for that machine, and I have only just earned the price back. I have finished packing up and my hand is on the throttle when the onboard system on the mining vehicle speaks again. It reports a phantom crystal ore signature below with a preliminary estimate. Above 100 tons, I kill the engine before it finishes spinning up and reopen the hatch. Phantom crystal is an extremely unusual reinforcement resource for a kindling starship. It is not a required material, and a captain can reinforce a ship perfectly well without ever touching it, and none of that dents its price. Add a suitable quantity of phantom crystal while reinforcing the hull armor component, and the stealth performance of the whole ship improves. Invest enough of it, and neither the naked eye of a same-tier creature nor the shipborne radar of a same-tier warship can find you at all. That one property keeps its value high, and not only inside kindling human civilization territory. As far as I know, the market price at home runs 5 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin per ton. If there genuinely are over 100 tons of it sitting in the core of that fragment, this is not a good day. It is a different category of day. 100 tons at 5 strands a ton is 500 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin, which converts to 5,000 strands of the Tier 0 kind. For a psionic shuttle, that number is not something a person says out loud. I get into my exoskeleton with my hands moving faster than they need to, and stepping outside the psionic shuttle still hits me with a deep bodily wrongness. Tier 0 lifeforms are not built for open space, and that is with exoskeleton armor on and a guiding technique at level 5 behind me. Without either, it would be considerably worse than uncomfortable. I withdraw the firmament into my kindling ancestral aperture and take the 3 surviving fire sunflower soldier puppets down through the hole and into the core of the fragment under my feet. The fragment is only about 100 feet across, so the space inside is small, and the enormous length of the gold-eating vine piled into one corner makes an already cramped room worse. Even if I could get the fierce tiger down here, it would barely be able to turn around. The mining vehicle is also currently inside the firmament's cabin, and getting it out would mean summoning a 20-foot shuttle inside a room this size, which is not a thing that happens. So I put the 3 puppets on specialized drilling shovels and set them digging by hand. It does not take long. Several feet down in a small pit they turn up a new ore, and it is exactly what I came looking for. I put a hand over my face and make a private note never to make a rookie mistake of that shape again. Earlier, to avoid whatever traps the gold-eating vine might have left, and because I could not stay exposed out there for long, I only sent puppets down to clear the place. Along with the life crystal, they also pulled over a dozen tons of ordinary refined gold out of it. I gave the room one casual look on my way out, and assumed nothing had been missed, and hidden underneath that refined gold there was a far larger quantity of phantom crystal the entire time. Without the exploration instrument and the vehicle system flagging it afterward, all of it would have gone straight through my fingers. The arrangements after that are straightforward. With over 100 tons in the ground, digging by hand is not a plan, because even by return time in over a dozen hours, those 3 puppets would not have half of it up. So I take them back to the surface, summon the firmament and the fierce tiger, and order the vehicle system to cut straight down from above. If the original core space cannot fit a mining vehicle, then I will simply open a much larger door in the roof and bring one in that way. I leave it working and fly back to the fragment where the first fierce tiger has been running. Several hours have gone by, and the 1,000 tons of refined gold are already out of the ground. I move all of that raw ore into the ruins market in batches, and then head back the way I came with the undamaged vehicle aboard. The second vehicle has lost a serious amount of its efficiency, and I am not confident it can finish the phantom crystal before the return window closes. Swapping in a machine at full working speed costs me an hour of flying, and removes the question. I spend over 10 hours working the surrounding fragments with the damaged vehicle, and collect another 100 or 200 strands worth of minerals along the way. Half an hour before the return, I bring the firmament back. I put 112 tons of fully mined phantom crystal into the heavens market, and then I sit and wait quietly. An hour later, my mother and I step out of our respective kindling starships at the entrance to the Donggang residential district. The Pentium Type 3 at home is currently with my father, so despite it being a conspicuous way to come back, both of us flew home in our own ships, because arranging a car for that stretch is more trouble than it is worth. My mother's flagship is a psionic airship named Dragonfly. It has been decades since she promoted her from a shuttle to an airship, and the ship's rank is currently stuck at level 19, which is one step short of Tier 2. Nobody who knows what that step is should be fooled by the size of it. One level, and the distance across it is the distance between the ground and the sky, and it is a chasm that has held countless Flameseed captains for the whole of their lives. Promoting a psionic airship into a Tier 2 frigate-class kindling starship takes more than special resources. It requires the captain to personally kill alien creatures of a higher rank than themselves during alien star region exploration, and to bathe the ship in the blood of those aliens. They say the base success rate on that promotion is 1%. Pouring in specific rare enhancement resources lifts it to somewhere around 10. Past that, the only way up is killing alien races out in an alien star region and baptizing the hull in what comes out of them. The more creatures killed and the higher their rank, the higher the number climbs. So I ask my mother what Dragonfly's current success rate actually is. She presses her lips together and gives me an answer I have real trouble accepting, which is 24%. Less than a quarter. I ask her how it can possibly be that low. Tier 0 to Tier 1 is a manageable thing, and given adequate resources and luck that is not actively hostile, essentially everybody gets there. Airship to starship is another animal entirely. Once the promotion mission is initiated, there is exactly 1 year of preparation. Across that year, the captain does everything they can think of to move the number, pouring in rare resources or hunting alien creatures in an alien star region or both. At the end of the year, the airship makes its attempt, and the number is the number. My mother initiated hers 5 months ago, so nearly half the year is already gone. I had assumed that with my father behind her, she would be over 30% by now, possibly over 40, since his own flagship has been Tier 2 for more than a decade. 24 is not what I came home expecting to hear. She gives me a look and asks whether I think promoting a psionic airship to a kindling starship is a simple matter. If that success rate were easy to raise, she says, in a city of over 20 million people with tens of thousands of registered kindling starships, would there be only a few dozen Tier 2 ships in the whole of Gangwon City? I have nothing to answer that with, and the worry does not leave my eyes. At this rate, barring some genuine stroke of fortune, the number at the end of her year is going to be around 30% at the absolute best. For an ordinary flame seed captain, 30% is a very good outcome. I cannot make myself accept it, because every kindling citizen knows the other half of this rule. Each kindling starship gets exactly one attempt at each promotion. There is no second try. A failed promotion means the kindling starship is gone. The flame seed inside the kindling ancestral aperture does not go out when a ship sinks, and it does fall into a weakened state that takes a buffer period of several decades to recover from. Only after that recovery can a person fuse with another Scout-class shuttle and begin the whole climb again from nothing. My mother is 100 years old. Her life level has sublimated once. That puts her at Tier 1 with a 200-year lifespan. Once several decades of flame seed recovery come out of that, cultivating a new kindling starship and getting a second run at Tier 2 is not realistically available to her. Without the psionic cultivation platform aboard Dragonfly, which she has also taken to level 19, her guiding technique would not reach level 20 inside a century. My own technique is at level 5, and level 6 is going to take me over half a year with a 580% amplification behind me. Without that amplification, it would be 3 years at minimum, and that is level 5 to level 6, which is the cheap end. Nobody even discusses what it costs past level 15. And there is a genuine bottleneck sitting between level 19 and level 20, where being stuck for over 100 years on that single level is ordinary, not unlucky. Thinking all of that through, I cannot get my heart to settle, and the good mood I brought home from a very profitable exploration is completely gone. My mother watches my face do whatever it is doing, rubs my cheek, and tells me with a smile that she knows her son loves her best. That my father will find a way, and that all this running around he has been doing lately is most likely him trying to. Hearing that, my eyes come back up. I know exactly what my father is investigating, and after more than 10 days of it, the odds that the titanium crystal information was groundless are dropping fast. And given what titanium crystal is worth, if he genuinely lays hands on some, it could be traded for something that moves the success rate on an airship promotion. My mood improves considerably. With my father and Uncle Shim working the same problem, 2 Tier 2 flame seed captains together, the probability of that titanium crystal eventually ending up in their hands should be good. I am still uneasy about one part of it. A strategic resource is worth what a strategic resource is worth, and so long as the information stays sealed inside Gangwon City, the two of them are more than enough. The moment it travels, 2 Tier 2 captains stop being a large number. My fists close on their own, and the urge to get stronger faster stops being an ambition and starts being a schedule. As for the Zhonghai Song family my father mentioned, I have no idea what its strength actually is, or whether any of it is reliable. I am not capable of resting my hopes on 4 ethereal words in somebody else's mouth. Given the choice between depending on other people and depending on myself, I have never had to think about it. I send my mother home ahead of me, take a few loops around the city center, adjust my appearance enough to matter. Once I am certain nobody is paying me any attention, I go to the Gangwon black market. The refined gold has to move fast. The scattered lots I will sell later through ordinary channels as a normal exploration harvest, which brings in about 15% more. As for the 110 tons and more of phantom crystal, a resource that rare and that useful to me personally, is not for sale at any price a black market would offer. I rent a large resource transport vehicle and move the entire 1,000 tons of refined gold ore in one run. I do not stay in there afterward, because I need what that ore paid me to buy stock. The prices inside the black market run higher than regular channels do, so nothing about restocking gets done in that place. The day after tomorrow, the ultra-long-range random space gate deployment platform in the ruins market finishes buffering, and that is the second market session. With 19 gates instead of 10, the number of alien races coming through can only go up. Failing to have enough stock on the shelves to sell them at 4 or 5 times what it cost me would be an insult to myself. An opportunity like that comes once every 30 days. The 3,000 and more strands I made last time went into the firmament and evaporated inside a week. This time I need to make considerably more. The Donggang Kindling Mall and the Eagle Machinery Shop. I have become enough of a regular lately that the shop assistant and I are on comfortable terms. She greets me the moment I come through the door and asks whether this exploration went well too. I smile at her, summon the firmament, and sell the whole spread of scattered minerals across her counter. On the strength of our previous arrangement, the acquisition price stays at 80% of market. The condition is the same one as before, which is that every strand of it gets spent inside the Eagle machinery shop, or the whole transaction is void. I do not go straight to the shelves. Instead, I dig through my clothing and put the life crystal on the counter and ask whether they take a life crystal grown by a peak tier 1 gold-eating vine. I brought it here for a reason, because the Eagle machinery shop has always carried gene optimization potions alongside the machinery. The primary material in producing those potions is stargrass. That means the annual yield of stargrass sets a hard ceiling on how many potions every force in that business can make in a year, which in turn makes a life crystal that shortens the growth cycle of plant life, one of the items pharmaceutical manufacturers want most. Her eyes brighten, and she nods fast. Of course they accept it. A life crystal at peak tier 1 energy carries a market price of 30 strands of tier 1 floating land origin. Their acquisition price is 32. And how does that sound to me? That price sounds excellent. And before I can nod, she asks whether this was also obtained on this exploration. I smile at her and say nothing at all. She reads that instantly and changes course without a bump in it, and asks whether I happen to have the remains of the gold-eating vine itself. Because if I do, the Eagle machinery shop would take the body and the life crystal together for 35 strands. Something goes quiet in the back of my head. I have never once heard that the corpse of a gold-eating vine is worth anything. If it were a genuine starseed plant, the remains would carry real research value. But a floating continent plant with its life crystal already removed ought to be about as remarkable as firewood. So I ask, in a casual voice, whether the vine body has some other use. She smiles and shakes her head and does not answer me, which is the answer. I do not push it. If there is a secret in it, there is no reason on the ground for her to hand it to me across a counter. What I tell her is that I came by the life crystal by accident and do not have the remains of the vine, and that happens to be entirely true. I never brought that body home. I judged it worthless without consciously deciding to, and I was not about to waste space in the ruins market on something I had already dismissed. After that, I start a new round of shopping, or more honestly, restocking. The tungsten alloy combat shields and tungsten alloy spears do not need discussion, since they were extraordinarily popular at the last session. I take 10,000 of each, and the pair of them comes to 1,000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. The Starsea Universal Translator I already own, so that line stays empty. The basic gene optimization potion gets 1,000 vials this time, which is another 1,000 strands, and I add 10 vials of intermediate gene optimization potion for 100 more. I buy no life nuclei at all. Last session taught me that Tier 0 alien races use life nuclei as their working currency. By the time the market closed, most of what I had earned was life nuclei anyway, and stockpiling them in advance is buying something the customers are about to hand me. Beyond that, I take 5 sets of basic civilian exoskeleton, each with 10 durable batteries, which under overload would last several months, and that runs 110 strands. Those are mainly an experiment. An exoskeleton is a genuinely complicated machine, and without the training to operate one, an ordinary creature gets no augmentation out of it and finds its own movements obstructed instead. Whether they sell it all is a question the next session answers. All of it together comes to 2,210 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. Counting what was left from the last market session and everything this exploration brought in, my hands are now empty. Even the origin from selling that refined gold in the black market has gone back across this counter. What I have not touched is the 32 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin from the gold-eating vine's life crystal, and I am keeping those for the dark matter energy shield generator. Tier 1 floating land origin is the universal strengthening resource for a Tier 1 kindling starship, meaning a psionic airship. Although it counts as a relatively common material at that level, its real value sits far above the Tier 0 kind. The official exchange rate laid down by the Morningstar Principality is 1 to 10, and at that price it is very frequently simply unavailable. The only place with a stable supply is the black markets, where the going rate runs 1 to 14 or 1 to 15. And where certain shops have reportedly cleared 1 to 20. The Eagle Machinery Shop offers me 1 to 10, and I am not in the business of taking a loss to be polite. I am spending every strand I own on the top floor of a mall. Out in the southern suburbs of Gangwon City, behind East Mountain Forest Park, the black market is having a very different afternoon. The Black Mountain Gold Shop sits on the periphery of that market and deals exclusively in metal mineral resources. It buys every category of ore that cannot be sold in daylight at 65% of market price. Moves it out through quiet channels to the large machinery shops at 75, and on that 10% margin the shop clears a comfortable amount every year. The margin works because the volume is enormous. Over 20 million people in the city, tens of thousands of kindling starships. On top of that, there is whatever the ground level employees of the floating land mining companies quietly walk off with every month. All of it flows into the black market in quantities that would embarrass the official figures. So even as a shop on the edge of the market, the Black Mountain Gold Shop makes a great deal of money. And the reason it keeps making it is that its backing is adequate, since it belongs to the Black Mountain Society. That means ordinary forces do not dare touch it, and the forces that could touch it cannot be bothered. Today is not an ordinary day. In a corner of that street, several figures have been watching everything going in and out of the Black Mountain Gold Shop for nearly 10 days. Neither the shop nor the Black Mountain Society behind it has noticed a thing which says more about the watchers than any description of them would. Toward the back, a man in a black hat gets a prompt through the communicator in his ear, and the lazy set of his face changes in an instant. His complexion does not move at all. What surfaces deep in his eyes is respect. The order he passes is that the target is confirmed, that it is inside the Black Mountain Gold Shop, and that they move. Every figure scattered along that street moves at once. Tier 1 aura pressure comes off all of them together. A faint light flickers between their brows, and 10 soldier puppets with alarming presence appear out of nothing around each one. All 4 of them are Tier 1 Flameseed captains, and every one of their flagships carries a special component of the soldier puppetry family. Something like that does not happen quietly. There is a Tier 1 psionic airship captain stationed inside the gold shop, and he knows something is wrong immediately. His problem is that his own flagship carries no soldier puppetry. The interior of the shop has nowhere near the space to summon a psionic airship, so his only option is to get out of the building. His entire plan is to reach open ground and summon his flagship, because once he is aboard, even losing the fight does not mean being taken or killed quickly. Holding out for a short while is all he needs before the black market patrol guards arrive. Chaotic as the place is, the black market exists because every force in Gangwon City has tacitly agreed it should, and it maintains a patrol system of its own. The people outside are not amateurs, and they have prepared for exactly that. 40 Tier 1 soldier puppets go around the entire gold shop the moment they appear, and whichever direction that captain tries to break through, at least 3 of them are already there. 40 against 1 with the initiative held by the 40. The result was decided before anybody moved. In under 10 seconds, the senior Black Mountain Society man is pinned and held like a slaughtered animal. He has undergone 1 life sublimation and carries a guiding technique at level 14, and none of it helps him. Then the 4 figures withdraw at speed, and not one of them so much as glances at the thousands of tons of mineral material sitting inside that shop. 2 minutes later, well after everybody involved is gone, the black market patrol guards arrive in kinetic flying cars, search, find nothing, and leave. Whatever the Black Mountain Society does about it afterward is not a question the black market considers its business. The Black Mountain Society is not weak. Measured against the genuine powers of Gangwon City, it does not make the list. And if it did, its businesses would not be confined to the outer ring. The core area is where the real Gangwon black market lives, and at least 9/10 of everything that flows through here in a year is traded in there. The simplest test for whether a force in this city is first class or second class is whether it holds an industry in that core. That one fact says everything worth saying about where the Black Mountain Society actually stands in Gangwon City. I know nothing about any of it. At the moment those 4 captains are pinning a man to the floor of a gold shop, I am on the top floor of a mall spending my last strand. Then I walk out of the Gangwon Kindling Mall with empty hands and a full hold. 2 days later, inside the Heavens Market, a full day of cultivation in the all-attribute cultivation room has left me in excellent condition. I stand in front of the ultra-long-range random space gate deployment platform, watching the buffer count itself down through its last minute. When it hits 0, I activate it without a pause. The 10 beams of light that came off this platform last time are 19 now, which means 19 space gates are being scattered across the boundless shattered star sea. Whether it is the near doubling of the gate count or simple luck, barely 2 minutes after deployment there are already spatial ripples coming from the entrance of the Heavens Market. That is what a gate being used looks like from this side. I turn my head and find several furtive alien creatures with human upper bodies and the lower bodies of fish standing in my market. I do not need the encyclopedia for this one, because everybody knows the merfolk race. Their mermaids are famous across the whole Shattered Star Sea, and not for anything anybody should be proud of, since the fame is entirely about their beauty. The words that follow them around are maids and slaves and concubines. The ones who have walked into my market are ordinary merfolk and not the extraordinarily rare mermaids, which is a mercy for everybody involved. I am curious about them regardless, because the merfolk race is genuinely uncommon out here. A species like that only forms on floating continents where water covers more than half the surface. They come in and start looking around, and I go over to them. It becomes clear quickly that whatever their tribe is, its education level is not low, since we need no translator at all and communicate in the Starsea Common Language without any friction. I lose interest almost as fast, These merfolk are young, and they have not been anywhere, and they spill every piece of information they hold the moment anybody prompts them, and they have nothing at all worth buying. A handful of deep water clam pearls out of deep sea shellfish, and some conch shells whose only use is being looked at. Deep water clam pearls are not worthless. They simply have to be old enough. Ground into powder, a deep water clam pearl over 300 years old promotes cultivation of the guiding technique, and used alongside a psionic cultivation platform, the effect is genuinely astonishing. Past 1,000 years old, they accelerate cultivation even for techniques above level 20. What these few are carrying is a few decades old, not one of them past a century. And the benefit to a guiding technique is close to nothing. Since nothing they have interests me, none of them can buy anything in any of my shops, and I can watch that fact start to bother them. In the gene optimization potion shop, one of them catches the trace of scent coming off the basic gene optimization potion, and every cell in its body sits up. That one breath tells it the potion in front of it would do things for it that it cannot put a number on, and that with enough doses its bloodline could undergo an acquired sublimation. And in the Coral Sea, where this one comes from, bloodline is the whole of the latter. Something sharp comes into its eyes. It asks out loud how one purchases this particular potion. The light screen in the center of the shop rearranges itself as the words land. What it tells him is that the age of his deep water clam pearls is insufficient, that the older the pearl the higher its value, and that 300 years is the minimum. The expression that goes across that merfolk's face while it reads is so vivid that I nearly laugh out loud. 2 shops away. I do understand it. The shattered star sea runs for an unknown number of trillions of light years, and the civilizations inside it are past counting. In the non-technological ones that pursue power in the body itself, the quality of a member's genes decides the entire shape of their life. To be born into one of those with a poor bloodline and an ambitious mind is one of the more pitiable situations the universe produces, because there is no door anywhere, and this creature has just been shown a door. I watched the male merfolk make his way toward the market entrance without wanting anybody to notice him going, and I let myself look forward to whatever he comes back with. The Blood Sea floating continent, the Coral Sea south of the Conch Archipelago and 200 miles north of Conch Island, on the seabed, where an elusive phantom portal appeared at some point nobody recorded. A subtle spatial ripple goes through it, and Gore steps out in front of it. He turns and looks back at the Void Realm portal, already calm again, and the sharpness in his eyes stops being something he can hide. The ambition he has kept buried surfaces on its own, and this time he does not push it back down, and within a very short while it is past controlling. On Conch Island, inside a hollowed-out interior, there is a slightly dilapidated palace that serves as the tribal land of the Tongji tribe of the merfolk race. The Tongji tribe was a king-level tribe once. After a long series of turns, it has declined a long way from that. Under constant pressure from the larger tribes, the water it still controls comes to the 1,000-mile radius of the Conch Archipelago, which yields a pathetic amount every year. Generation after generation, the king-level bloodline of the Tong tribe has thinned out. The strongest individual in the tribe today is Tier 2, and in a blood sea where the strong simply eat the weak, that is not a survivable position for long. In a hidden underwater cave deep inside the tribal land, the clan chief looks at his son. He asks whether Gore genuinely intends to trade deep-water clam pearls over 300 years old for an unknown potion, and tells him he must have gone mad. Gore meets the eyes of a Tier 2 merfolk without flinching, and tells his father that he is certain the potion can purify the thin king-level bloodline in their bodies. That at his father's current strength, purifying that bloodline even once over would carry him into Tier 3. The clan chief stares at his son and his voice goes heavy. Gore should understand what he is saying. Items that purify bloodline are extraordinarily scarce. If this one is a fake, his monthly resource allocation gets cut by 80%. Gore does not hesitate and nods again. The clan chief says nothing further. He waves a hand and throws a jade box across the cave, and inside it are several crystal clear pearls. Back inside the Heavens Market, the alien races keep coming and the street gets steadily busier. I am not enjoying it. I have been camped in the stall area since the session opened, hoping for 1 or 2 Star Sea exotic items the way I found the refined gold raw stone last time. So far there has been nothing. The goods in my shops are moving beautifully at 5 times what I paid for them. That profit was already in my plan before the gates opened, so it does not count as good news. What I want is the kind of gain nobody wrote down in advance. Then my eyes come up, and I look toward the market gate. Gore comes back into the ruins market carrying so much excitement that it is visible from across the street, and he does not even glance at the crowded freestall area. He goes straight to the gene optimization potion shop. He asks how many bottles of the potion one 300-year-old deep-water clam pearl will buy. And standing in the middle of that shop, he sounds nervous. He has reason to be. The Tong tribe has declined badly, and even with his father, the clan chief, being a Tier 2 merfolk, what the family could produce was 6 deep-water clam pearls over 300 years old. Getting as many bottles as possible out of them is not greed on his part. It is arithmetic. Out in the stall area, I do not move a muscle and my consciousness is already in that shop. I think about it for a moment and set a price. One 300-year-old deepwater clam pearl buys 3 bottles. By the going rates in the Morningstar Principality, a 300-year-old deepwater clam pearl sells for over 200,000 credit points, and 3 vials of basic gene optimization potion cost me 30,000. That is only about 6 times my money, which I feel is restrained of me. Gore has no way of knowing any of that. He reaches into himself and produces 4 deepwater clam pearls of around 300 years. Hesitates, puts 3 of them away again, and pushes 1 toward the counter, and says he wants 3 bottles first. I am in no hurry at all. I use the law energy of the ruins market to take the pearl in, and 3 vials of basic gene optimization potion float out from under the counter and settle into his hands. He does not wait for privacy. He picks one up and pours the whole thing down his throat where he stands. For a creature that has never had one, a basic grade potion does a great deal. After a stretch of genetic correction that is visibly painful, Gore feels the powerful bloodline settling into his body and starts laughing out loud in the middle of my shop. Then he produces the other 3 pearls at once and trades them for 9 more bottles. And then, while I am watching with a pleasure I have to work to keep off my face, he takes out 2 considerably larger pearls. One is 700 years old, and one is 900, he says, and both are far more precious than the 300-year ones, and he wants to know how many bottles they buy. I hold the excitement down and answer fast. The 700-year pearl buys 10 bottles, and the 900-year pearl buys 20. Reading that, Gore's eyes fill with conflict, and underneath the excitement there is a real struggle going on. Deepwater clam pearls over 700 years old are extremely valuable. Even in the days when the Tong tribe was a royal-level tribe of the merfolk race, the clan treasury never held more than 50 of them. Once these 2 are gone, given the size of the water the tribe still controls, collecting pearls of that age again is not something he can promise anybody. He is standing there struggling when footsteps come up behind him, and he turns to find a member of the human race of the Star Sea walking into the shop. The aura coming off that human is unremarkable. What comes out of his mouth is not. The human asks how much stock of this potion the shop is holding, and says that if it is not too much, he will take all of it. And while he says it, he tosses out a large quantity of floating land origin and life nuclei, some of it tier 0 and some of it tier 1. Gore stops struggling on the spot and says quickly that he will trade, and that both the 700-year and the 900-year deepwater clam pearls are going for potion. He never notices the corner of the human's mouth lift slightly behind him before it gets put away again. The human is obviously me. I watched the merfolk hesitate and came over personally to put a hand on the scale. There was no help for it. Deepwater clam pearls at 700 and 900 years are enormously rare, and with my guiding technique at level 5, their auxiliary effect on me is huge. Walking out of my own market without them was never going to be something I could live with. At my current rate, even with the amplification of the all-attribute cultivation room, breaking the guiding technique through to level 6 takes half a year. That is not slow. It is extremely fast, considering that level 4 to level 5 took me under a month. And I am still not satisfied with it. The road after this is very long, and if the early levels cost me this much, I do not want to hear what level 30 or level 40 costs. With those 2 pearls, I am confident of level 6 inside a month. With the 4 300-year pearls on top of them, I have a reasonable degree of confidence about level 7 inside 3. I hand 30 bottles of basic gene optimization potion over to Gore, and stop worrying entirely, because the trade is done, and regret is not a mechanism that exists in here. That is how I wrote the rules of the Heavens Market. Every trade rests on the willingness of both parties, and if either side does not agree, nothing happens. Once a trade completes, being sorry about it afterward accomplishes nothing at all. With the merfolk's business finished, it is my turn again. I cough lightly to pull Gore's attention back to me and ask, in the voice of a customer, how much stock of the potion the shop is actually holding. At the same time, I move my mind, and the text on the light screen changes to say the stock is approaching 5 digits. Knowing exactly what I just wrote, I let surprise onto my face and say that there is genuinely that much. That it is a pity I do not have enough funds on me, because otherwise I would buy all of it. Gore nods along with me without thinking about it, because he feels precisely the same way, which is my opening, so I take it and start a conversation. I tell him that I noticed he bought a considerable quantity himself, that he has evidently worked out what this potion can do, and that I would like to propose a trade. Gore raises an eyebrow and something wary goes through him, and he asks what kind of trade. I appear not to have noticed anything at all, and I lower my voice and tell him that I will give him a sum of floating land origin, that he will use it to buy 1 bottle of advanced gene optimization potion on my behalf. Gore's eyes narrow and his whole body goes stiff. He does not agree to anything. He asks me what an advanced gene optimization potion is. Something triumphant goes through me and I keep every trace of it off my face. What I put on instead is a man who stumbled by pure luck onto the better product hidden behind a shop counter, and I play it to the last inch. I glance around like a thief, confirm nobody is close enough to hear, lean toward Gore's ear, and drop my voice. It is the enhanced version of the same gene optimization potion, I tell him, and its effect is more than 10 times what the one in his hands does. I paid an enormous price for a single dose myself, and the result was frankly intoxicating. The tragedy is that this shop enforces a limit of 1 per customer, and if it did not, I would have bought every bottle in the building. Gore comes off the floor like a rabbit that has had its tail stepped on. 10 times the effect of the gene optimization potion, he says. Does an enhanced potion like that genuinely exist? As though the shop itself has decided to answer him, the text on the light screen in the center of the room changes. It says the advanced gene optimization potion has only 9 remaining, and that its effect is indeed far superior to ordinary gene optimization potions. 9 blue tube vials appear on the counter along with those words, glowing faintly, packaged considerably more handsomely than the ones he has been buying. One of the 9 opens at the corner with a small sound, and a faint medicinal fragrance escapes before it seals itself again. Gore gets a fraction of a second of that scent, and every cell in his body starts cheering, and the bloodline he has already corrected once shows signs of stirring toward another revival. His instincts tell him this advanced gene optimization potion could produce a genuine sublimation of his bloodline. 1 dose might not restore his peak king-level bloodline outright. 2 or 3 of them would certainly bring a portion of it back. He says out loud, urgently, that the shop must hold all 9 of those advanced gene optimization potions for him, and that he will return very soon. I watch his reaction go straight through the ceiling, and I keep my expression exactly where it is, and the light screen in the shop changes one more time. The production cost of the advanced gene optimization potion is high, and the quantity is scarce, it says, and only deep water clam pearls at least 1,000 years old can be exchanged for it. Gore reads that in one glance, says nothing at all, and leaves the ruins market faster than he left it last time. Inside the palace on Conch Island, the clan chief of the Tong tribe brings his fishtail around hard enough to send a current across the whole cave. The pressure a Tier 2 creature puts out at close quarters is a serious thing to stand in front of. He calls it absurd and demands to know what his son imagines a 1,000-year-old deep-water clam pearl is. He is nowhere near finished when Gore simply takes out more than 30 basic gene optimization potions and hands them across. The clan chief opens one and smells it, and the next second his reaction is identical to his son's. Something sharp comes into his eyes and the withered bloodline inside him starts moving again. He asks whether this is the potion Gore was talking about, and says that it genuinely does what the boy claimed. Then he asks whether Gore is certain there is an advanced version 10 times stronger than this. Gore nods, heavily, with no room in it for doubt. The clan chief closes his hand around the vial, thinks for a moment, and then looks at his son again. This, he says, is a heaven-defying opportunity for the Tong tribe, and since Gore is certain, he should go and make the exchange. He does not have any 1,000-year-old deep-water clam pearls to hand at the moment, so Gore will take this and try with it instead. And he tells him to remember what he is carrying, because these items are extremely precious, and to bring back as many of those advanced potions as he possibly can. Back inside the Heavens Market, I put my attention on the Gene Potion shop again the moment Gore returns. Then I hear his answer, and my brow comes down, because this is a disappointment. No 1,000-year-old deep-water clam pearls. In that case, there is no version of this where I let him exchange for the advanced gene optimization potion, and I am already reaching for the light screen to say so. Gore gets there first and produces something on his own. He does not have a 1,000-year-old pearl, he says, and the value of this item is greater than 1. It was gestated by a mermaid of a kind his merfolk race sees perhaps once in 1,000 years, and other creatures call it mermaid tears. He sets the thing on the counter while he is still talking. Then he adds that this drop of mermaid tears was gestated by a Tier 3 mermaid and that it can promote the life-level transformation of the overwhelming majority of creatures in the Star Sea. That crystalline teardrop is more translucent than any deep-water pearl I have ever seen, and from the moment it appears, every scrap of my attention is on it. I know exactly what mermaid tears are. They are one of the very few items anybody has ever confirmed can add success rate to the advancement of a kindling starship. And if Gore is telling the truth about a Tier 3 mermaid, then this drop raises the advancement success rate for kindling starships at Tier 3 and below. Tier 1 to Tier 2, an increase of 10%. Tier 2 to Tier 3, an increase of 5. Nobody who has not stood next to a promotion should underestimate those numbers. For a Flameseed captain about to attempt one, an item like this ranks second in importance only to their own life. And I need it right now. My mother's dragonfly is sitting on odds that are far too low, and although my father is doing everything he can think of, the situation is not encouraging. If there were treasures around that could raise a success rate, my father would have used them on my mother years ago instead of running himself into the ground this month. And the titanium crystal is still a rumor with no body attached to it. so this drop of mermaid tears is not leaving my market. The light screen reads that Tier 3 mermaid tears are of acceptable value. That given what the item is worth, the restriction of 1 advanced gene optimization potion per customer is lifted, and that 3 may be exchanged for it. My first instinct was to offer 1, and I thought better of it, because 1 would be pressing far too hard. If I pushed Gore into refusing the trade, my only remaining option would be haggling with him through a light screen. The persona I have built for every trading intelligence in these shops is that they are perfectly fair and their prices are final. Wrecking that persona to squeeze 2 extra vials out of 1 merfolk would be an extraordinarily stupid trade. 3 is neither generous nor insulting, which makes it exactly right, and I do not believe he will refuse. He does not. He tries to bargain first, and once the light screen declines to move a single letter, he agrees. 3 vials of intermediate gene optimization potion go into Gore's hands, and the mermaid tears come into mine, and for a moment I cannot keep the delight out of my chest at all. With mermaid tears added and with whatever else my father manages to find, Dragonfly's odds at her official advancement in 7 months should clear 50%. That is still not what I would call safe, and it is an entirely different world from 24. And if the titanium crystal does eventually materialize, there should be a good deal more improvement on top of it. Time keeps going and the alien races keep coming, and the stock I bought for over 2,000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin sells out completely. The margins are not subtle. Basic gene optimization potion cost me 1 strand of vial and leaves at 5. Tungsten alloy spears and tungsten alloy combat shields cost me 1 strand for 20 and leave at 5 for 1 strand. Basic civilian exoskeleton, which cost 200,000 credit points a set, or 20 strands, leaves at 100 strands a set. With prices turning over several times across the board, the funds in my hands go past 8,000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. What I am doing in here stops being trade and starts being harvest. The part that pleases me most is what is inside that 8,000, because over 100 strands of it is Tier 1 floating land origin. Added to the 32 I was already holding, that is enough to keep strengthening the dark matter energy shield generator several times over. And it is not finished, since the freestall area is still trading, and every minute of it drops another transaction tax into my hands, large or small. By my estimate, when this session formally closes, I should be past 10,000 strands. On top of that, I am still buying up goods with wide price gaps in them, which will turn into another modest profit on the black market later. The one disappointment is that I watched every stall in that area for the entire session and never turned up a single Star C exotic item. I do not brood over it, because the reason is not mysterious. The ruins market is only at level 9, and at that rank the space gates admit Tier 0 Star C races and nothing else. The odds of a Tier 0 creature happening to own a Star C exotic item are extremely small to begin with. Once the market rank climbs, the odds climb with it. Having worked that out, I stop hunting exotic items on purpose. Several hours later, with half an hour left before the session ends, I set up a stall of my own and put over 2,000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin on it. A move that size does not go unnoticed. Inside a few minutes, there are over 100 aliens standing around my stall wondering what a human intends to buy with that much origin. Then I put out my sign written in Star C common language, and the crowd produces a chorus of hissing. Exchanging for Tier 1 floating land origin. 11 strands of Tier 0 for 1 strand of Tier 1. The moment they understand what I want, most of the crowd walks away. That is entirely fair, because Tier 1 floating land origin is far scarcer than the Tier 0 kind, and the majority of the creatures standing there do not own any. I expected that. What interests me is that dozens of figures have not moved, and seeing them stay puts a glint in my eye. The exchange ratio inside the ruins market has always been 1 to 10. So offering 1 to 11 costs me slightly. Set against the 1 to 14 or 1 to 15 a person pays in the Morningstar Principality. It is a rate I am happy to live with. So long as some of these aliens are willing to trade at it, I do not lose. Before long, one of them steps up and tells me that 1 to 11 is still a little low. That if I go to 12 strands of Tier 0 for 1 strand of Tier 1, he will exchange 10 strands with me. I shake my head at him, and I do not soften it. At 1 to 12, I would not be losing money, and I would not be making any either. And I have not spent this session working for the benefit of the Shattered Star Sea. The price of Tier 1 floating land origin on the black market is also not stable. 1 to 14 is the average, and nobody can promise me that on the day I go to sell, the rate has not been pushed down to 1 to 12. Seeing that I will not move, more of them drift off, and by the time the crowd finishes thinning, there are fewer than 20 left in front of my stall. That is already enough to satisfy me. Out of nearly 20 creatures, surely I am not walking away with 0 trades. And this whole thing was an idea I had 10 minutes ago that cost me nothing to try, so even a complete failure would not have hurt. The result is a great deal better than I expected. Of 18 aliens, 12 trade with me, and one of them hands over 100 strands in a single transaction. By the time the session officially ends, the total funds in my hands are past 11,000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. The Tier 1 floating land origin inside that total has reached 302 strands. As for the remaining goods, I set aside the 6 deep water clam pearls and the mermaid tears, along with the mercury crystal and refined gold and life nuclei I am going to need shortly. Everything else usable comes to over 5,000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin. Of that stock, I only intend to keep about 2,000 strands worth. Given the current number of space gates the Heavens Market deploys, the number of aliens who can come through in any one session is capped. 2,000 strands of goods is enough to fill that demand. Holding more would simply mean sitting on inventory that does not sell. The other 3,000 and more strands worth is going into the firmament. 2 days after the market closes, I make several trips to the black market and convert that entire batch into ship-strengthening resources. Tier 0 floating land origin and mercury crystal and refined gold. Then I go back into the ruins market and shut the door behind me. In the freestall area of the Heavens Market, with the firmament already summoned and 2 days of preparation behind me, I start a new round of strengthening without hesitating over any of it. The first thing to be strengthened is obviously the dark matter energy shield generator, which is the highest quality component the firmament carries. That orange glory quality shield performs superbly against a peak Tier 1 gold-eating vine, and watching it work in an actual fight settled any remaining doubt I had about where my resources should go. The generator is currently at level 10. Taking it further wants 20 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin and 20 tons of mercury crystal, and it also wants 5,000 psionic energy points delivered in one go. The origin and the mercury crystal are not a problem, since I prepared both. The psionic energy, which is the simplest resource on that list, has quietly become the obstacle. The standard psionic engine on the firmament is strengthened to level 14, and its attached psionic energy pool holds barely 5,000 points. That covers taking the dark matter energy shield generator to level 11, and it does not cover anything past that. So I have no choice but to spend an additional pile of resources taking the psionic engine all the way to level 19 first. At least the psionic engine is a standard colorless component, which means even its Tier 1 strengthening only wants Tier 0 floating land origin and Tier 0 life nuclei. Psionic engine, level 19, quality colorless. Consumption 10 psionic energy points per second. Power supply 118 per second, 20 minutes of cooldown after an overload, and a psionic energy pool holding 9,000 points. Under upgrade requirements, it says the component has reached its strengthening limit and cannot be strengthened further. The psionic engine is strengthened to its ceiling, and its psionic energy pool has only just scraped 9,000 points. Looking at that, I make myself a quiet promise to acquire a high-quality engine component as soon as it is humanly possible. Because I remember what the atomic fusion nuclear engine looked like. That component carried an attached energy pool of 5,000 points at rank 0. Strengthened to rank 19, it would be sitting somewhere north of 30,000. I would not be living like this, with low supply efficiency and a pool that runs dry when I need it most. With 9,000 points to work with, my estimate is that a few more upgrades on the dark matter energy shield generator will put me right back where I am standing now. There is nothing to be done about it today. I checked the White Tower Regional Network Mall yesterday, and there is not one engine component of blue quality or above listed anywhere on it. There are a few white ones with unremarkable attributes and remarkable asking prices, and I did not think hard about those. I make do. With the engine handled, it is the dark matter energy shield's turn. Since I am holding plenty of Tier 1 floating land origin and plenty of mercury crystal, I do not hold back on any of it. An orange glory quality component is going to serve me for a very long time, and pouring resources into it early is the highest return available to me. Dozens of seconds later, the dark matter energy shield generator is sitting at level 15. Getting it there costs 200 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin and 150 tons of mercury crystal. The panel afterward is a different document. Quality orange. Its attribute now raises shield value by an additional 85%. Its second attribute still doubles shield protection. Consumption is 60 psionic energy per second. Protection reads 880. Shield value reads 16,280 out of 16,280. Recharge in 20 seconds, 35 minutes of buffering after an overload, and the next upgrade wants 70 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin, 10,000 psionic energy, and 45 tons of mercury crystal. Protection went from 380 to 880. Shield value went from 6,080 to 16,280. Calling that an improvement is not adequate language. The reason the jump is that Violet comes down to quality. High-quality starship components carry unique attached attributes, and both of the dark matter energy shield generator's attributes are percentage-based, which means every level I add makes the percentages themselves more frightening. I want to keep going. I still have 102 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin and 50 tons of mercury crystal, which is comfortably enough for one more. And I cannot because level 15 to level 16 wants 10,000 psionic energy and my pool holds 9,000. So I move my target to the fire sunflower soldier tree instead. That is currently the only component on the firmament besides the shield generator and the golden rock hull armor that can consume Tier 1 floating land origin. I am not ready to touch the armor yet. 90 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin takes the fire sunflower soldier tree to level 15 as well. Quality white. Consumption 200 psionic energy per unit. Its effect now summons 10 level 15 fire sunflower soldier puppets that exist indefinitely so long as they are not killed, with 24 hours before a dead one can be summoned again. Its next upgrade wants 30 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin and 4,000 psionic energy. That leaves 12 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin in my hands, which ends Tier 1 strengthening for the foreseeable future. Having finished with the two highest quality components on the ship, I turn to the white kindling hull. That component does not add attack or defense to the shuttle directly. What it does is determine the number of special component slots a kindling starship has, and set the rank ceiling on the psionic cultivation platform. The platform is optional as far as I am concerned, since I have an all-attribute cultivation room. Special component slots are a thing I can never have too many of. The firmament currently carries the fire sunflower soldier tree and nothing else, and I have no intention of that being true forever, and having spare slots waiting in advance costs me nothing but money. The white kindling hull is priced exactly as it was when it was colorless, because the strengthening resources have no relationship to the quality of the flame seed. Level 0 to level 1 wants 5 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin, and 200 piece psionic energy. Level 1 to level 2 wants 10 strands and 400. Level 2 to level 3 wants 15 and 600, and so it climbs. In the end, I spend 225 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin, taking the white kindling hull from level 0 to level 9. I could have carried the whole rank, which is really the rank of the flame seed, past level 10. I thought about it, and I stopped, because taking the kindling hull from level 9 to level 10 begins the firmament's advancement from a psionic shuttle into a psionic airship. Advancing is not difficult, and with the foundation the ship already has, there is essentially no possibility of failure. That is not the concern. The concern is that once the firmament advances, the danger of every alien star region deployment afterward advances with her. I am a man whose entire strategy is to quietly scavenge ordinary resources and come home alive, and buying myself a harder class of enemy is the last thing I want. Which is why the white kindling hull stops at level 9. Even stopping short of an advancement, the number of special component slots on the firmament has gone from the original 2 to 6. Kindling starships gain slots according to the quality of their own flame seed, and every 5 ranks of the kindling hull adds a different number depending on that quality. A colorless kindling hull adds 2 every 5 ranks, and a white one adds 4. A blue one adds 6, and a purple one adds 8. As a ship bound to a white flame seed, the firmament gains 4 slots per 5 ranks. That is not permanent either, since raising the quality of my flame seed again in the future would have the ship recalculate its slots against the rank the kindling hull has already reached. With the hull handled, there is still a fair amount of Tier 0 floating land origin in my hands, so I finally turn to the golden rock hull armor, which has never been strengthened at all. As a white quality hull armor component, its strengthening returns are genuinely good. It has stayed off my priority list this long only because its function overlaps with the dark matter energy shield generator. The resources it wants are identical to what the fire sunflower soldier tree wanted, with refined gold in place of the rest. In the end, I spend another 295 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin and 81 tons of refined gold to carry the golden rock hull armor to level 10. I also add 2 tons of phantom crystal at every single level along the way, 20 tons in total. I brought 110 tons of that home from the gold-eating vines fragment, so 90 remain. What the phantom crystal buys me is stealth. With it worked into the armor, the firmament's hull becomes meaningfully harder for alien creatures to spot and to track during an alien star region exploration. The reason I did not pour all of it in is that the golden rock hull armor is only white quality, and I fully expect to replace it before very long. Burning 90 tons of phantom crystal on a component with a short career would be an expensive way to feel productive. Golden rock hull armor, level 10. Quality white, consumption 10 per second, protection 230, and the next upgrade wants 10 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin, 2,000 energy points, and 20 tons of refined gold. With that done and a little strengthening material still left over, I take the psionic main cannon and the patrol radar to level 10 as well. Psionic main cannon level 10. Colorless, 40 psionic energy per shot, power 99, 4 seconds to charge with a 6-second buffer. The next upgrade wants 100 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin and 1600 psionic energy. Patrol radar, Level 10. Colorless, 5 psionic energy per second, detection range, 1 light minute, accuracy, 30. And the next upgrade wants 140 strands and 2000 psionic energy. Both of those are standard components and both are effectively at the end of what they are worth. I have no intention of feeding them anything further, since both are going to be replaced and neither is anything more than a bridge. Sorting through what is left, I have the 2000 strands of Tier 0 floating land origin I deliberately set aside. Beyond that, there are 6 deep water clam pearls, 1 Tier 3 mermaid tears, and a scattering of unused resources. An hour ago, I was standing here with over 11,000 strands to my name and feeling like a wealthy man. Nearly 10,000 strands of that is gone, and I sit down with the panel open and let out a long breath. The kindling starship system of this civilization advances at an extraordinary speed, and every bit of that speed is built on consuming resources in quantities that have no floor. The whole civilization is a gold-devouring animal, pulling material out of the shattered star sea every second of every day without pause. And it is not as though we invented that. Every intermediate and advanced civilization out there is running the same machine. Once I am finished sighing about it, I bring up the firmament's full attribute panel, because after more than a month of strengthening, she is not remotely the ship that came out of that fusion. Name Firmament. Model Kindling Civilization Psionic Shuttle. Rank Level 9. Basic components: White Kindling Hull at Level 9, Psionic Secondary Cannon at Level 10, and Psionic Secondary Cannon at Level 0. Golden Rock Hull Armor at Level 10. Psionic Engine at Level 19. Dark Matter Energy Shield Generator at Level 15. And Patrol Radar at Level 10. The Psionic Cultivation Platform still at Level 0. 8 slots of 8 filled. Additional components: Fire Sunflower Soldier Tree at Level 15. 1 of 6. Psionic Pool 9,000 of 9,000. Materials: 12 strands of Tier 1 floating land origin, 2,215 strands of the Tier 0 kind, 50 tons of mercury crystal, and 3 300-year deep water clam pearls. I close the panel and take out one of the 300-year pearls. Dark energy gathers in my palm, and the surface of the pearl begins to tremble very slightly. The frequency climbs as I hold it, until watching from outside it looks as though the thing is about to burst apart in my hand. It does not. When the vibration reaches a certain point, it settles back down, and once the pearl has gone completely still, countless fine cracks open across its surface and it collapses into powder. There is no trick in that. It is only that my control over my own psionic energy has become extremely fine. I can push energy into the interior of a pearl and pulverize everything inside it without damaging the shell at all. I take an intermediate body tempering potion out of my clothing, pour every grain of that powder into it, and shake it gently until it mixes through. Because this is how a deep water clam pearl is actually used, taken together with a body tempering potion and combined with an all-attribute cultivation room, the effect stops being incremental. I get to the cultivation room, swallow the potion in one go, plant my legs, spread my palms upward, and drop into the psionic guidance technique as fast as I can reach it. The mermaid tears stay aboard the firmament because handing it to my mother today would be inconvenient. I have to wait until I am back from the next alien star region exploration, and then I can produce it and let the exploration take the credit. Producing it now would be very hard to explain. My parents would not press me if I did not want to answer, and finding a reasonable moment costs me nothing. Inside the cultivation room, the instant I settle into the standard posture, the psionic energy in the whole sealed space begins gathering. The speed of it startles me even though I paid for it and knew what I was buying. With the technique running, the energy outside my body behaves like fledglings coming home. There is no extracting involved. It comes to me. If ordinary practice inside the all-attribute cultivation room rates a 6, what I am sitting in right now rates a 60. A guiding technique that broke through less than 20 days ago is moving noticeably again. For a while, I am genuinely mesmerized by it, because cultivation at this speed does not belong to the world I grew up in. A day and a night later, I come out of the cultivation state because the acceleration from a 300-year deep water clam pearl has run out. Outside the room, I sink my attention into my own body and work out what that day bought me. One day of cultivation has done the work of 2 months. The level 6 breakthrough that was going to take about half a year now needs 4 months. I am thoroughly delighted for a while, and then I calm down. Because a great deal of that result comes from this being the first time I have used a clam pearl to assist cultivation at all. Every use after this one will be discounted. My fists close and I feel a genuine pang of regret, because that was only an intermediate body tempering potion. If I had an advanced body tempering potion to pair with a pearl, the effect would be in another class entirely. And that is all it will ever be, which is a thought. Advanced body tempering potions are not like the intermediate and low grades. They are listed as strategic materials of the Morningstar Principality, and they do not flow out easily, and only the noble class receives a fixed quota every year. An ordinary citizen does not get to want one. At the entrance to the ruins market, my figure goes indistinct, and then I am gone out of the heavens market entirely. I would very much like to burn all 5 remaining deep-water clam pearls in one uninterrupted stretch. I have also now been inside the ruins market for 2 days and 2 nights. If I do not put my face in front of my mother reasonably soon, she is going to take my bedroom door off its hinges. I walk out into the living room and find, unexpectedly, that my father is home today. He is sitting on the sofa with his eyes fixed on a star map projected off his communication bracelet, working through something. I lean straight over his shoulder and ask what he is looking at. My father glances sideways at me, does not answer, and goes back to the star domain map in front of him. So I check the kitchen, confirm my mother's attention is somewhere else entirely, put my head next to my father's ear and ask quietly whether any specific news has come out about the titanium crystal. His expression does not change at all. He tells me flatly that this is not a matter I can participate in and that I should focus on preparing for my 3rd alien star region deployment. The tone is light, and I have lived with the man for 30 years. My father is easygoing almost all of the time. When he becomes serious, his voice gets calmer rather than harder, and a decision made in that voice is not one anybody talks him out of. Pushing further on the titanium crystal would make him genuinely angry, and having seen my father angry, I close my mouth like a sensible adult. After lunch, I tell my parents that I intend to spend the next 5 or 6 days entirely on the psionic guidance technique, and that they should not worry if I do not come out. Both of them nod and neither asks a question. The psionic guidance technique is something the kindling human civilization spent tens of thousands of years successfully deducing, and has spent nearly 200,000 years refining since. What it does for a person is genuinely beyond what an outsider would guess. Because absorbed psionic energy can be used to replenish the body's own consumption, nobody out here quite lives on air the way the immortals do in the novels. Going 10 days or half a month without eating or drinking is entirely ordinary. Most people still eat normally regardless, because the rich blood energy in food accelerates cultivation further, and skipping meals to prove a point is a poor trade. On my way back to my bedroom, I ask my father one more question, mostly on impulse. I ask whether our family has any channel for getting hold of advanced body tempering potion. It was a casual question with a thin thread of hope attached to it, and that thread is entirely about the Jonghae-song family he mentioned to me weeks ago. The moment it is out of my mouth, I feel foolish for asking. Because if a family with real weight behind it existed, somebody would have to explain the 30 years I have just spent receiving precisely no treatment of any kind. Or perhaps what remains of the Jonghae-song family today is one high-grade visualization technique and nothing else. Then my father answers, and the answer is nothing like what I expected. Advanced body tempering potion, he says. Do I need one? Then he tells me that a potion at that grade is extremely effective and extremely demanding on the body. That generally only somebody with a guiding technique at level 10 or above can use one, and he asks whether I am sure I want to attempt it now. I come out of my daze and ask him, not entirely believing what I am hearing, whether he means he can obtain one. My father shakes his head. It is not a question of obtaining anything, he says. His father has it on hand. If I want it, I can go and get it myself, and it is in the bookcase on the right side of the study. He tosses a key across to me while he is saying it, then asks again whether I am certain I can handle it. The efficacy of an advanced body tempering potion is overbearing, and if my physical condition is not adequate, it will not accelerate my cultivation at all. It will damage my body. I tell him I obtained several deep-water clam pearls over 300 years old during this alien star region exploration, and that there should not be a problem. He thinks about that for a moment and then nods. Deep-water clam pearls over 300 years old are fairly rare, he says, and although that age is on the low side, it should just about serve, and I should go and get it. He had intended to give it to me once my guiding technique reached tier 1, and since I have had the luck to come by pearls of a decent age, using it early is fine. The better the conditions around it, he adds, the more an advanced body tempering potion can do. I go to that study at something close to a run. The key opens the bookcase, and inside I find an exquisite potion case, and inside the case there are only 3 vials. One look at the markings and the color along the edges of the tubes, and there is no doubt what they are. Standing there looking at 3 elegant purple vials, my eyes lose focus for a second. From this moment forward, the 4 words Jonghae-song family mean something different to me than they did this morning. I hesitate, and then I take all 3. I have 5 deep-water clam pearls left. The 700-year one and the 900-year one are each more than sufficient to pair with a single vial of advanced body tempering potion. My plan for the remaining 3 300-year pearls is to use all of them together to neutralize one vial. One 300-year pearl on its own clearly cannot fully temper medicinal properties that overbearing, and 3 of them together should be about right. Using them together also wastes nothing on either side, since the excess simply extends how long the potion runs. I go back and tell my father that I took all of them. He nods gently, which is his agreement. My mother comes in from the side with a fresh round of instructions, telling me not to force anything, to watch myself while using it, to stop cultivating immediately if my body cannot take it. I tell her I understand. Then, I take 3 vials of advanced body tempering potion back into the ruins market with me at a speed that is frankly undignified. In the all-attribute cultivation room, I take my time getting my body into the best condition I can manage. Then I swallow the vial I have already mixed with the powder of 300-year deep water clam pearls. What arrives first is a burning in my abdomen. Behind it comes an enormous surge of energy that nobody would describe as gentle, erupting out of my stomach and flooding every part of me at a speed I cannot track. My entire skeleton starts making faint cracking noises. It sounds far worse than it feels, because there is none of the unbearable tearing pain I braced for, and what actually spreads through me comes in waves of numbness. Along with it, the rate at which psionic energy pours into my body climbs into something absurd. If my cultivation speed on the intermediate body tempering potion mixed with 300-year pearl rated as 60, what I am sitting in now rates 100. That is not an enormous increase over the last one. The duration is, because this potion runs for a full 3 days, which is 3 times what the last one gave me. 3 days later, I come out of cultivation, and my psionic guidance technique has gone from level 5 to level 6, and I have covered a respectable distance along the road toward level 7. Having tasted that, I do not stop.